Call a regular meeting of council to order. Monday, February 28th, 2022. Budget meeting. Approval of the agenda, please. Councilor Nobre.
That the February 28th, 2022 Budget Council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Lehman. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. New business. 3.1 Draft 2022 Capital and Special Projects. A report from the Director of Finance dated February 28th, 2022 to seek approval from Council for the proposed 2022 Draft Capital and Special Projects. Recommendation, please. Councilor Kirkhalka.
Council receives the draft 2022 capital budget for discussion.
Seconder. Councilor Majinski. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councilor Kirkhalka, would you like to start?
I just put it out there.
Okay. Would council like to start? I'll start by thanking staff very much for putting this all together. Appreciate the information and the accuracy. I think we went over last meeting about some capital and special projects we wanted to prioritize, and I think staff did a good job of capturing that. Who's first? Councilor Nobre.
If I could propose, Mayor Bertrand, it seems we do, this process seems to go the best if we just start from the top and work our way down. So I would like to propose we start at Schedule B and go project by project and.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please.
So, Schedule B, top one ADM computer server replacement. I see that we've already raised the funds for this project, and yeah, some staff needs we need to do.
Want to continue on, Councilor?
Not really. The chair of the meeting seems like it's supposed to each one.
Councilor Kirkhalka.
Yeah, so just on that in regards to replacing existing computer servers, how long does that give us for being new? Like, it seems like we're constantly going through and replacing these servers, so I'm just curious what the life expectancy on these new servers are gonna be.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the last time we replaced the server, but Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. The last servers we replaced were, I believe, about 12 years ago. These ones have terabyte space of 10 terabytes, so they will last us probably that 10, 12 years again.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councilor?
Just curious, I just knew that we had replaced them. I was not on council, but part of the budget delegations and stuff. Just curious what life expectancies out of this new stuff coming in.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, connectivity, research and development. Research and development for providing redundancy and high-speed internet throughout the district of Tumbler Ridge, including determination of ownership of conduit. I think this is definitely a priority that we've identified in the strategic planning workshop that we had, so it's certainly on the radar and still in the information gathering phase at this point, but certainly a priority of this council still. Rail export study, this is the one being done by the Resource Municipalities Coalition. It's still being completed at this point. There was some capacity issues on CN's side due to the flooding down south, so there was a bit of delay in collaboration and gathering information in that regard, but the project is still moving forward. And that's strictly an in and out. There's no tax dollars involved in that at all. We're just basically a placeholder. Councillor Hahn.
Yeah, just a question on the study there. On page 6 of 21, administration talks about the rail export study. The current budget is $246,000. We spent $138,000 so far, and then we have over here $148,000. Can I just get an explanation of, like, I thought this was funding from last year. Is it a carryover from last year to this year? How that works?
Yeah, this is a carryover for the total project. And again, it's not any of District of Tumble Ridge money being used for this. It's coalition money. We're basically a placeholder for that because the coalition isn't identified corporation. Ms. Thompson, do you have anything to add?
Thank you. If you note on page 11 on Schedule B, it shows $148,000 of grant. So that grant is coming through NDIT and through the Resource Municipalities Coalition. There is no funds from the District of Tumble Ridge. So the total project was that amount. This is what is remaining of the grant.
Any follow-up, Councillor?
I don't understand the numbers, how 246 and 138 and 138, or 138 and 148 add up to 246. That's maybe why I don't understand how it works. Looks like, I thought we had budgeted for that the previous year. We got the money back from them, and now we're doing it again this year. I just don't understand the numbers how they work.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Ms. Tegarty respond.
Thank you.
So I'm just putting in the amount for this year. So I'm just in the middle of year end working through. So when I put it back in it's a carry forward, it will say grants.
Okay. Okay. But it's not in addition to the 246.
No, it's not. I will make
Okay.
sure in year end that I'll take care of it in
Okay.
2021.
Thank you. Any other questions in regards to the rail study? Councillor Howe?
Have we received that money already from, was it Coalition, Resource Municipality Coalition? We have the money already?
I'm not 100% sure, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. So in the beginning, the RMC paid the first few invoices before they started billing us. So the district is carrying it until we can apply through NDIT with the final project to receive the money back.
Which the funding had been approved prior. Thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
So just on that, we're spending our money first and then waiting for the reimbursement.
Correct.
Councillor?
So just on that, we're not holding funds in regards to coalition,
Yeah,
right?
that's,
We're not holding their funds, we're actually using our funds
yeah,
and getting reimbursed.
yeah, that's news to me. I thought it was the other way around. Okay, Councillor?
I think that's how it was sold to us as well.
Hmm.
That we would be holding their funds, it just wouldn't be, I mean, to me, I understand it's not tax dollars, but it's still funds from this municipality that's prepaying for stuff, waiting for reimbursement.
Yeah, and I was under the understanding that the grant had been awarded by NDIT and we were the placeholder for the coalition. Councillor?
So there's no liability there, like, we 100% will be paid back for every dime we spend there?
Correct. Okay. All right, moving on to OCP review. Not much left to do there, Ms. Thompson. I believe we're already in readings, so any update on that, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So OCP, we need all members of council present, so we will have it on the agenda for March the 7th for council to review, and this is just the remainder of the funds to complete the project.
Okay, thank you. Any questions in that regard? Okay, moving on to council chambers, modernize audio recording. Not 100% sure, Ms. Thompson, but the PRA funding didn't completely cover this project. Is that correct? Ms. Thompson?
Correct. Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. In 2021, we've spent 17,000, so this is 53,000 left of the project carrying forward, which will be utilized through PRA funding, or proposed PRA funding.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
So the 53,000 is a carryover, it's just not marked under carryover, or it won't be yet until year end's done?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. So, yeah, I'll have Ms. Tegarty respond when it comes to the PRA funding.
council, Mayor and council, it is a carryover. I felt that putting it as a carryover, even it doesn't show where the funding came from. I can revert back if you like for me to put it in the carryover box, but I just think it's kind of confusing because to council, it's looking at is your funds, but really it's grant related. So I can change that, but it is a carryover.
Councillor Kirkcaldy.
Yeah, I don't think you need to change anything. It was just a question. I believe we had it for last year. I just want to make sure it's still in carryover or not. I mean, I see it's not under new, so I figured it was a carryover, but just wanted to confirm. So I think it's whatever way you guys are comfortable doing it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think showing it as PRA funding is more clear as well, and it's I'm not sure if there's a way to show it as a carryover as well, but simple question asked. Okay, any other questions? All right, zoning bylaw. The district's zoning bylaw will need to be reviewed and updated to bring in alignment with the new OCP and to ensure that the district's zoning regulations reflect best practices in areas of accessibility, sustainability, and urban design. Councillor Howe?
So is this not something that staff can do? Why is it set up for, I assume this is a contractor that's gonna take it on? Our zoning bylaw is like 55 pages or something like that. So it's about $1,000 a page we're paying to a contractor to look at the OCP and then change our zoning bylaw. Do we not have any time on staff to do something like this?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Because of the detail required in the zoning bylaw and the expertise and to tie it in with the OCP, it is better off to have a contractor do it. And there are, I guess, there is a lot of regulatory stuff that needs to be put in there as well. So having a contractor complete the zoning bylaw to ensure that that is the way forward for the district, because it is that document that we follow quite in detail when it comes to any permitted uses and non-permitted. It is the contractors have the expertise that maybe we haven't dealt with that they've seen across the province as well. So having the contractor do that, and the fact that the contractor that we are hoping to award to has just finished our OCP. They tie in zoning with the OCP.
Okay, follow up.
And just out of curiosity, what did the OCP cost us? Do you remember rough idea what that was?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Approximately 60,000.
Right. So OCP is generally quite a bit bigger document than what the zoning bylaw is, wouldn't you think?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor, through council. So the OCP is an overarching, so it's not quite as detailed as what the zoning bylaw would be. So like the OCP sets the general overarching. So yes, there's a lot of pages and a lot of documentation in it, but it's not the detail that would be required in the zoning bylaw. Like in our zoning bylaw, it will say you can only do a single family dwelling or this, that, or the other thing. So there's a lot more detail that is required in the zoning bylaw outside of an OCP.
Councillor?
And just one more question. So when they actually do this document and they change it, they bring it back into us and they'll show us the changes that they did and then we have to approve it?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, correct, that is what it is. And note, for our current zoning bylaw that we have, we don't have a lot of detail when it comes to R4, which is rural residential. So that is why staff is actually asking to bring that back this year to update, so that when we do have more rural residential development, we have the parameters inside that would be part of that development.
Okay.
Councillor Kirkcaldy?
Thank you, Worship. My question just is it not something we could have done together? Like, obviously they finished the OCP. I understand it hasn't come before council yet because we haven't had a full council due to other things, but you know, we've done that. Now we're waiting for the approval, but then we're gonna bring them back to do this part. I'm just wondering like why we wouldn't have joined those two together last year in the budget session.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. In regard to that, a lot of times they are done in conjunction, but the OCP has to be completed first. So ideally, it is great to have them both completed at the same time. However, with the pandemic and staffing and time of the contractor as well at the time, it is just the way that it needed to work out at this time to have the zoning done separate.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to municipal website. The district's website is no longer supported and requires updating. This pricing is based on a 4-year contract, which also provides new design after year 3 and to ensure the design remains current with the latest design trends. Questions, concerns? Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is an outside contractor that would come in and do this design, or would that be done in-house to do all the updating?
I believe it's outside contractor, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. It would be an outside contractor that would do the initial design and transfer, and then staff will be able to add pages and do any updates as we go forward. And then would be $7,000 a year for those 4 years, and in year 3, they would redesign with the new back end of the software that is, or hardware that's, software that would be required for it.
So that's $7,000 a year for 4 years.
Correct.
Okay. I was wondering why it was so low.
Yeah.
Okay. So after the initial design, the initial year, what's the next 2 years contract for? Is there support included in that, Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. There is always support that is included in that. And when you do look at other contractors that do come out, I believe a few years ago we paid $20,000 just for some cosmetic updates to our website. So this keeps all of the back end of everything updated, and there is the support in it and the help that would be required in order to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor. One more question. Is that just the District of Tumbler Ridge website, or does that include the investtr.ca website as well?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Staff have been in discussions as senior management to combine all of the websites that we currently have. There's the Invest Tumbler Ridge, there's the District of Tumbler Ridge and another, and to put them all into one website where that would be the only place you would go, and then everything would be built inside that or the District of Tumbler Ridge website. So we'll be bringing them all together.
Follow up?
Will this include that app that we had for as well?
The QR code, you know?
No, the app we have for a cell phone app for the District of Tumbler Ridge for investing. And the new brand or whatever it was?
Not aware of an app. We had talked about a possible app, but we haven't implemented anything yet. Is that what you're referring to?
Active was something there that had a logo design, remember?
The online marketing strategy.
Yeah. Would that be included?
Councillor?
Are you talking about the Visit Tumbler Ridge, the new logo for the Visit Tumbler Ridge, instead of, the global nautical geopark? It was Visit Tumbler Ridge who came up with that new logo for Visit Tumbler, just to try to partake them apart.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, that's.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. So we would still use that logo for Visit Tumbler Ridge. We would just be able to put everything within, so that, we had gone outside to bring that definitive definition between the Global Geopark and the District of Tumbler Ridge. So that marketing strategy would be used.
Councillor?
As a standalone entity from this new web design, correct?
Well, the staff would look into it more. We would look into it more and make that proposal to council on how it would work.
Thank you.
Councillor Kirkowka?
Thank you, Worship.
So when you said it, I thought it was the same thing that the worship said. It seemed awful cheap, but now it's only 4 years. Why wouldn't we be looking at 28K, or at least have something that says 7,000 a year for 4 years, so we know what we're getting into? But to me, I'm looking at $7,000 for 2022. I won't be here next year, but at next council to see $7,000 and then question why. Well, didn't you guys just do that in 2022? So is there a way of doing that? Like, then we know what the total is. It's 28 grand is what staff's asking for to do the website.
For that project, yes.
Yeah, for that project.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Ms. Thompson, thoughts?
Thank you. So when we're looking at this, we are looking at 2022 expenses. So we would actually show it in the 5-year plan that would be pushing forward that over the next X amount of years. What we can do going forward is we can note, it wouldn't necessarily be under budget 2022, but we would be able to show that it would be 28,000 over the 4 years.
Councillor, follow up?
Yeah, so the only reason I asked that is Well, next year all of a sudden council sees it again and goes, no, not into that. Well, we've already just locked them in. So that's my concern, right? Is we're seeing $7,000 today, we do it, next council comes in, budget 2023, they're like, no. Council last year paid the $7,000, why are we doing that? We're not doing that. But we're actually locking them into a 4-year contract.
Right,
So that's why I'm saying we should have something, however we gotta word it, on the sheet so that we know that it's there. Next council inbound will see that it's already been pre-budgeted. Like, they can't change that in the 5-year plan, where we've just wasted $7,000 in 2022. If all of a sudden we throw it out.
right, because you're thinking
It's a 4-year contract.
the 5-year plan that's presented is negotiable every year as well.
We change it every year.
This one wouldn't be. Yeah, I see your concern there.
And I'm
Ms.
just saying, I'm not sure how they would block it for staff wise, but I mean, it needs to be, next year's, when we have this budget doc, that it's already been locked in for 4 years, so
Right,
staff doesn't lose that.
yeah, I see your concern there. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. We can amend that, and Ms. Tagerty will put in a placeholder for the full 28.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Member Trent. Does this cost include like support? So if there's any security issues or stuff like that, they don't cover us on that end?
Ms. Thompson?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Councilor?
The reason why I ask is like at the community forest, we just did a website and it was expensive, almost half of this, and give or take a bit. So hearing that we're going to get one replaced in 4 years seems like it's pretty decent. And larger organizations can be prone to certain types of web attacks. So knowing that we have somebody on the back end that can protect us from a DDoS attack or whatever, right? Like I don't want to just throw letters because I know it's computer and it's geeky, but you know, people will attack websites knowing that they can hold them ransom. So having that security in the back end, you know, it could save us a bunch of money. So it's reasonable.
Yeah. No, it's certainly a concern. I've been hearing a couple meetings actually today. A lot of cyber attack is happening at the moment. So, Councilor,
Dawson Creek, right? Dawson Creek had one a year ago.
last year, yeah.
Had one, I think, too.
Okay. Other questions? Councilor Norbury?
So as we've gone through it, I propose that we accept Schedule B, General Government,
Draft capital special project budget.
As a motion?
Yep.
Seconder? Councilor Kirby, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Moving on to Schedule C. The 46-acre Wood Crown Residential Development. Purchase the eastern portion of the 100-acre wood, budget to include survey and other work. So does, Ms. Thompson, does that 10,000 include the finishing off of the purchase? Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Correct. So for the 46-acre wood or 100-acre wood for what it was previously called, we've already paid for the land and the timber crews and the value on that. So we're unsure what final costs we're gonna have. There'll probably be a little bit of legal for transfer and stuff. So that's just the remainder of what we need for funding to complete the purchase.
Okay, thank you. Questions, concerns? Councilor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor. Would there be for other work, would that include wildlife impacts, bird nesting studies, archaeological studies? Does that all include this? Or do we have to wait until a later date for a timeline when we want to actually develop it?
I believe that would be included in the environmental assessment if we were to move forward on developing, Ms. Thompson?
Correct. This is just to complete the purchase. Any further development will have costs that will be associated with that outside of just the purchase. And I'll note as well that goes into the Saddle Club as well, which is further down on the list. It's kind of the same costs. The Saddle Club is a little bit further behind, so we're unsure of the total cost that will be associated with that. So that was remainder budget from previous year.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, moving on to Sidewalk Urban Design Guideline. Questions, concerns? Okay. And the Saddle Club Rural Residential Development. Counselor Howell?
What does "and present the business case" mean, and how much money is being allotted to presenting the business case?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'm not, that one I think is just a typo for us because that is to complete the purchase of the Saddle Club, present business case. I think that was probably last year we copied forward.
Okay, so the business case isn't needed at this time to finish the finalization of the purchase, correct?
No,
Thank you. And business case that was referred to in here would have been development business case, Ms. Thompson?
correct, thank you. So we did have a contractor that was helping us with the development of the business case. We have a lot of good data from it. However, staff need to calculate and work on the optimal costs of development at this time. So we do have all the background data on it. Now we just need to finish for future development of that and bring that to council. So that is that is outside of this. This is just the purchase or completion of the purchase.
Thank you. Follow-up, Counselor?
Yeah, just with that, like eventually at some point, we're gonna own it. I thought we already did, but apparently it's not quite done yet. We've paid for it. The business case is we own it, we gotta sell it, right? Like, that's the business case for it. But at some point, we have to come up with some options for a council to come in and say, this is what it'll look like. We do 5 acre lots. These will be 2.5 acre lots. These are a cost if it's a 5 acre lot. These are a cost if it's 2.5 acre lots. Give us options so that we can make the decision of how much money that we want to sink into this land. That's what I expect is coming. I hope we see it before the end of this council, but is that correct? Is that what we're looking to do with this thing?
Ms. Thompson?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, we are, like I said, we have all the background data. We just have to go through with that as well. Like we had talked about servicing, sizes of lots, what makes the most sense in going forward. So that is on our plate.
Okay.
It's outside of capital because it will be done in-house for what we have for numbers already. So that will be coming.
And I would assume that a lot of the delays in both the Saddle Club and the 46 acre wood has a lot to do with the AE decision. Is that correct, Ms. Thompson?
Yes, thank you. They so we actually just got the ownership for 100 acre wood last week. So we do technically own that now. It should be all done. I'll just wait for the final bill that needs to come in. In regard to the Saddle Club, the community forest is waiting for their amendment. So because of the cumulative effects and where they are at, it needs to be amended to be taken outside of the community forest, and it's not at this time, and they're still waiting for the provincial government to approve that. And from my understanding, and I will reach out and get more clarification on it, that the original application that went in for the amendment to the community forest as a whole did not include this amendment, and they will need to amend that after the fact. And so I'm not sure on the timeline on that yet, because of course the community forest is still awaiting their amendment because of the cumulative effects on the Blueberry decision.
Okay. So the double process then, so it's going to take a while then.
It may.
Okay. Councilor Norbury?
From the community forest side, we've been hitting the district manager over and over, over and over. When is this gonna get done? It's supposed to be a quick process. It's supposed to be a quick process. The Blueberry decision is really holding everything up. And the whole forestry industry is hesitant on making any decisions at the moment in time.
Mhm.
Apparently it's sitting on a desk waiting to check mark, so.
Okay. Any other questions in that regard? Councilor Norbury?
Make a motion that we accept Schedule C, Economic Development, Capital and Special Project.
Seconder? Councilor Kirby? Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Schedule D. Auto extrication tool replacement. Counselor Kirkowka.
I'm just wondering if staff can give us an overview on, I understand a lot of it, but are we looking at replacing just the power unit for the hydraulics? Or are we looking at replacing the 2 units, or I'm not sure, they probably have 3, they probably use a RAM as well. And then the other one, a battery powered combination extrication tool, do we already have one, or this is something new?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I will have Chief Curry respond. Chief Curry?
Mayor, council, so the replacement of the auto extrication equipment will be for the hydraulic power unit. For all of the hydraulic tools, it does not include the replacement of the rams, the spreaders, or the cutters. In September, we undertook a review of our auto extrication equipment, something that's never been done to my knowledge. I couldn't find anything previously, so we looked at the lifespan of the tools that we actually have, and quite a few of them have exceeded their life expectancy. So this is the beginning of a gradual progression in changing some of this stuff out. The hydraulic power unit itself was due for replacement in 2012. It did get a retrofit shortly around that time to move to more modern technology, but the power unit itself is quite large. It's about 100 pounds, so it's very difficult for one firefighter to carry. It actually requires 2 firefighters to carry it. Its replacement is half the weight with more PSI, and it's easier for one firefighter to carry. The battery-powered combination extrication tool, or a combi tool as we call it, we do have one, was donated by Peace River Coal back in 2011. It was a first-generation technology. Technology has advanced a lot since 2011. We are finding that we are replacing batteries in a 28-volt system, similar to what you'd see on like a DeWalt, on a yearly basis. It just eats batteries. The new technology now would have far greater lifespan, greater use. We wouldn't have to hook it up to a truck in order to try and use it to actually get it through. So that's why we're recommending its replacement.
Thank you. Follow up.
Yeah, so just on that, your existing combo tool, I was gonna use that word, but not everybody knows that, so, are we looking at donating it, selling it, trading it in?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I'll have Chief Curry respond again.
Mr. Mayor and Council, there is going to be trade-in value that's going to be determined at the time of the purchase, so we will get some trade-in for these items.
Thank you. Counselor Norbury.
Just to clarify, this is like the Jaws of Life clapping thing, right? Like, that's what I thought. Just,
Yep, absolutely. Other questions, concerns? Okay, PPE dryer. Any questions, concerns there? Counselor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. Didn't we buy one last year?
I think it was something else, but Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I don't recall, but I'll have Chief Curry respond as well. Chief Curry?
Mayor and Council, Councilor Lehman's close. It was the washer. It was the extractor that we replaced last year. And out of that is, we didn't foresee the use of a dryer at that point, but now we're doing such a good job with cleaning gear, making it safe for people. We've got a bit of a backlog when gear does get washed. We hang it ambient air, and that's having now a pile-up effect on the back end. So this is going to be a forced air blower that we can actually hang the gear on. It's done in about a third of the time, and then we can get it turned around back to the members.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Howe?
Just a quick question with that on procedure. If we run across something like this, like a fire department run, like we all thought it was a good idea to wash our own gear, save money. It made sense last year why we went with it. But if we come across something that like, geez, we should have bought the dryer as well. Is there a process here for our fire department to bring that back to council and say, we missed something in the previous budget? Is there any way for us to get this approved during the year?
Like last year, you mean? Like,
So he figures this out in August that he would like to have a dryer, rather than having to wait all till this year to approve it.
Sure.
He needs the dryer, $6,000, bring it in, let's approve it, move on with it. Is there any way that we can have it set up, or can we do that? Or once a budget is set, you can't touch it?
no, I think there's certainly a way. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, sorry. We're just deciding who can respond to it, but you can amend the budget throughout the year. Ms. Haggerty can respond to her preference as the CFO on how budget amendments go through, so I'll have her respond.
Thank you.
To Mayor and Council, yes, obviously Mr. Curry could come and ask. Budget amendments are a little bit tiresome, it's a lot of work. But I do agree that if things need to be done, then I don't see it as a problem. But I'd like to think that we're not amending budgets like every month. It'd be something, that I could look at bringing it back quarterly or 6 months.
As a check-in type of thing.
Yeah, check-in.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Councillor Howell?
And I get where she's coming from. You don't want to be always amending it for every little nook and cranny, that thing that you can adjust. But for something like this, I just want to know that staff is aware that they can bring stuff like that forward. And to me as a councillor, I'd rather them bring it forward than then go ahead and spend the money first and then find out about it later on. I'd rather just come back in and say, here's a couple of things that we'd like some money set aside for. We are blessed to have great reserves in this community, right? So if something like this pops up and it's going to save us money and the fire department needs it, I'd rather see them bring it forward right away rather than wait. So.
Thank you. Councillor Majinski?
Was there any discussion on a budget threshold at one point? This seems like a fairly nominal amount, $6,000, compared to some things that you'd have to get approved and get multiple quotes for and stuff like that. Would this be something that could just come in as a request instead, because it's such a small amount? It's not a huge capital item, I don't believe.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the threshold there, but I would say that it is a capital item. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Ms. Haggerty and I were just discussing, and the thresholds that we have for capitalizing, we're unsure of at this time. It would be something that we would have to look up. That's usually what we go by for capitalization, or not usually. It is what we go by, is what's in our tangible capital asset policy.
Thank you.
Just add to that as
Yes.
well.
Please.
And purchasing policy is really where I refer to, and I think that is one of the lists on our strategic priorities, because it definitely needs to be looked at.
I agree. Follow-up, Councillor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to EOC communication, situational awareness equipment. Questions, concerns, Councillor Krukowka?
Yeah, just question there in regards to the grant. Have we received the grant?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Council just approved the resolution to send in, so we don't have confirmation of the grant yet, but this expenditure would be grant dependent. If we do not receive the grant, then the project wouldn't go forward.
Councillor?
So the reason I asked that, if it's not grant doesn't get approved, it doesn't go ahead. How important is that? How important is the item here that, we've applied for a grant, waiting for the government to either approve or deny it? But how important is some of this items, person communication, situational awareness, technology for emergency operations center? We had an EOC activated. I don't see any signs within the chambers tonight, so I'm not sure if we've closed our EOC or not. But that concerns me, that when we talk about it, we've had a chance that we had 2 fires this summer and stuff like that. I'd like to know how important that is instead of waiting to be grant dependent.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, all of these types of projects and capital, if they are grant dependent, it would be interesting to know priority, I guess, or how important. But I think all of these asks are somewhat important to every department. But Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I will have Chief Curry respond to the need for the smart whiteboard. But one thing we did add in, because this is our EOC, is also to replace the displays in council chamber and add a 3rd one as our EOC. But I will have him respond to the need for the smart whiteboard.
Thank you. Smart.
Chief Curry.
Mayor, Council, so in light of the EOC activations and welfare seasons that we did have last year, we started looking for efficiencies, and not just ourselves, but our neighboring partners, the PRRD, and some other communities are starting to move more to an online EOC. Understanding that we need to do more apart in the pandemic was really evident. especially when we tried to do an EOC in a similar fashion where you try to pile 75 people into this room, if it was to get significant enough, we knew we just couldn't operate the same way. So the smart board that we're recommending would be in council chambers, would have video networking and teleconference capabilities, have the ability for staff, whether it be here, Fire Hall, Community Center Hall, to work collaboratively on documents. An EOC will function without a smart board. So in the realm of nice to have, need to have, I would put it more in the nice to have. But when we saw the grant opportunity for 2022, it was definitely something that was high on my radar.
I do like that opportunity where the collaboration between the organizations is a lot easier through the smart board. Like, you know, the EOC can be activated here, but stay in contact with PRD virtually quite well, I thought. Yeah. Councillor Howe?
Does it work if we lose our internet?
I don't believe so. I don't think our cell phones do either.
Another EOC, wasn't it? Beavers.
Beavers, yeah. Just commented about that today too, actually. Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you for staff even looking at grants for stuff like this, because we wouldn't have it on our agendas here tonight if they weren't out looking for these extra funds that can come into our community without coming out of our own pockets, or taxpayers' pockets, I should say. But I think it's great that they're actually looking for things and being able to enhance the staff's workload. What they can do here, so it's pretty impressive. So
Thank you.
thank you for that.
Councillor Kirkhope?
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, grants, that's tax dollars too, maybe not
Not
municipal, but it's still
Municipal.
provincial and federal tax dollars.
which is perfectly
Sorry,
fine.
just the way you said that, I thought maybe you were saying it's like more or less free money, but it's still, we pay those taxes, right?
No, any grant is going to be taxpayers' money, just not from our district coverage.
Councillor Howe?
So this is just slightly off topic with the EOC communications, but we did talk about when we lost the internet last time that we were going to look for alternate solutions similar to satellite internet or something like that could be accessed from the community center or from town hall. Did we ever follow that up? Did that ever become anything, or did we just drop that after the internet got hooked back up?
Yeah, I think a lot of things were considered and learned during that time. Ms. Thompson, can you elaborate, please?
Thank you. We did note that we didn't have landlines at district buildings, so that moved forward, and we do have landlines that are available at district buildings. In regard to the continued internet, we had looked into some options. We were kind of hoping Starlink would come in, and that one is kind of still on hold. So at this time, we hadn't gone any further with it. Hoping that Starlink would be our most viable option.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Member. And with that, I mean, Starlink has reached a few members in the public, myself included. You can sign me up, and we could reach out to a couple of the members and say, hey, if we ever have internet outages, can we borrow, bring down the satellite? It's
that
great
easy?
money.
Is that easy?
Oh man, I had my internet up and running in 15 minutes.
There you go.
No problem.
There you go.
Put up on the front steps.
Interesting. Okay. Any other questions in regards to the EOC communication, situational awareness equipment? Okay, encroachment enforcement project. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Can staff explain this one a little bit for me? Maybe I'm simplifying the process, but it seems like it's a lot of money for someone to go out and look down a sight line and say, okay, that's over. Can we just get a little more explanation?
Certainly. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I will have Chief Curry respond to the encroachment enforcement project. Chief Curry?
Mayor and council, so Council Norbury is correct. In some cases, it is just as easy as looking down a sight line, measuring off from a property or a parcel, and seeing what it is. Where we're going to run into problems is where it is within a foot, because when we're trying to tell someone that they have to either tear down a shop or buy a whole bunch of more property when they're a foot over onto district property, we need to get that legally surveyed. This project Also identifying staff's capacity in this. We still have day-to-day operations that still have to happen with bylaw, et cetera. This is a big undertaking. We tried it a few times last year in order to try and look at some target places, and it takes up a lot of our time in order to try and go through things, measure stuff. It ended up being both myself and the bylaw enforcement officer that were out in the field. This would be using BC commissionaires who are trained in bylaw enforcement for a period of 6 months to come out and provide that service, as well as using contractors to do the legal surveying where it would be required as such. And then we can move forward with, now we have the lot expansion availability for buying an extra 10 feet behind somebody's property in place. So that's largely now going to be the case. The individual will be given the option to either move whatever they have, if it's a built structure or anything like that, or given the option to purchase.
Thank you, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. So just to repeat back what I'm understanding, we're going to have someone come in, they're going to survey the entire community to check on all properties that are encroaching onto district property, as well as give us the mode to resolve these conflicts. Is that correct?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. For that price, you wouldn't be able to survey all property within Tumbler Ridge. It would be those ones that we are, that have a concern that there is encroachment that is only within a few feet.
Follow-up, Councillor?
And I just said a mode.
Okay. Councillor Howell?
So I would think that if somebody has built a garage or their house or something off of their property, they would be the ones that would be responsible for paying legal costs and surveying costs. It should not be the district of Tumbler Ridge. If we have to prove it, that, yeah, you're off of your property, here's your $3,000 bill because you're off your property, I would think that we can absolutely charge that back to somebody if they built a garage off of their property. Shouldn't be borne by the taxpayer because somebody's built something off. If we're doing it to prove a point and we need to eat it because, you know, that we were wrong, it isn't off of their property, I can see there being costs in that. I'm in support of this. I don't know if I'm ready to do it now. The reason being is that I don't know that we have our process totally sorted out on how to apply for lands from the DTR that we might be encroaching on. I know the process has started. I know there's a few that have gone through it. As far as I'm concerned, it's not concrete yet. It seems to be getting there, but it's not there yet. And my other thought is won't we always need contractors to do this if we don't train our own people to do it? And I understand that if you're going to try and do it like the entire town one day to set yourself up for now we're done, but it doesn't sound like that's what's happening. It sounds like we're going to go to some select areas that we think we have some concerns with, and then we're going to need a contractor to come back in 3 years when we have concerns again, and then the year after that, without training the people that we have to do this. And in the back of the report here, it even says, in order to move forward in the spring with the encroachment enforcement project, staff are proposing to contract this service. The contractor will need to train staff to provide enforcement training required for the project to proceed. So we're hiring a contractor and they're gonna have to teach their people on how to do it. Doesn't quite make sense to me. I'm not sold on this part yet.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. And part of that training will be so that they are familiar with DTR bylaws in great detail, right? And to have the process that we currently have in place, because we have a policy for encroachment, and then we have the bylaws that would need to be reviewed and be known to do that. And I want to note too that this is probably going to be a very contentious issue for the DTR and for current owners. So having a contractor come in who isn't tied to the community, doesn't have any bias, or doesn't know, and they're very professional when they're dealing with it, you know, it's not like, oh, Ms. Thompson's picking on me, right? It's a contractor that comes outside. A lot of times those contractors are ex-law enforcement and they have their training. So it would just be to ensure that they are aware of the bylaws and you know where it falls within both municipal, provincial legislation as well, and how we move forward on it. So that's where their training would come in. But I would note that the contractor that we are considering, 90% of the time they are ex-law enforcement, and so they have those the training and de-escalation and everything that you need in order to move forward. And then it takes that, I guess, that bit of a bias out saying like, oh, Ms. Thompson is picking on me because of this, right? I'm 2 feet off. Well, these are the rules and this is what it is. So it does assist in that way. Chief Curry, do you have any other?
Councilor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so that was one of my concerns that Councilor Hall brought up. So we hire somebody for a bylaw commissioner for 6 months. Then after that 6 months, he establishes who's encroaching, whatever. And then he is expected to train our current bylaw to continue to go forward and maintain these policies. Is that correct?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. So Chief Curry just noted that it's other way around. We're training them for our bylaws and what's going forward. But that was one thing that council had talked about was, getting rid of the encroachment. So it is quite rampant throughout the community. So this is like the first stage is to get the majority to comply, or we can work with them on the lot expansion. After that, then it's manageable again, where you may have 1 or 2 properties a year, not like you have 150, right? So it's to get it in control and bring it back in that everybody is contained within their own property or is looking at purchasing to expand, and then we can maintain it from there.
Follow up.
Okay, so then would the bylaw commissioner go hand in hand with our bylaw officer to these and go in together so that they have the whole process and all these places sorted out? Is that how it would work? Or would the commissioner be on his own, boots on the ground by himself, knocking on doors, and then trying to rectify 100 different infractions?
Ms. Thompson.
Yeah, at that time, it would be the commission or the contractor that would do it initially. And there would be follow-up visits that are required because, even within our policy at this time, it says 30 days, right? So the initial contact, and then there's continued contact that goes with it and the process that goes with that as well. So yeah, they would be initially the ones that would be contacting, and then we would, and it's a new process as well. So I can't guarantee that it's gonna go exactly smoothly, but at least we have the way forward on it should council choose to fund this project.
Thank you. Councilor Kirby, then Norbury, then Kirkcalka.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think bylaw enforcement has been a concern of this council's for some time. I think this recommendation with this encroachment enforcement project is a good one, especially with not having ties to the community and bias, and I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. We can get somebody from across the globe to come here, and they're gonna know that it's the District of Tumblr Ridge that's enforcing land. I understand the purpose of bringing the third party, but it's going to be the District of Tumblr Ridge. They know it's us. We're the ones who want these people to come in. So, but for me, my thoughts is, do we want to spend $75,000 to worry about people off their land by 6 inches a foot, 2 feet? I don't know. I'm not that concerned. I'm more concerned about the people over 10 feet, 15 feet. They're parking cars in their backyard. Into the green spaces. We're talking about, unless I'm wrong, and staff can correct me, we're just looking about those small encroachments because they're not easy to identify. I don't know if that's worth $75,000 to me, but
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. Well, I do agree with you with small encroachments versus large. This year it might be 1 foot. 2 years it might be 8 feet. The year after it could be 15, and now we've got cars and everything else on it. And it's like, okay, you can bend the rules, but within 2 feet of it. If it's going to apply to one, it needs to apply to all. That this is what your property is, this is what you need to stay on. And if we're not going to do that, then there's really no point in doing the project at all. Because you might say somebody at 4 feet, we're going to do it, well, they're 4.5 feet, so we let them go, well, now somebody's at 5. If it's for one, it needs to be for all, or there's no point in doing the project.
So it's not, it's not specifically targeting the minimal 1 to 2 feet. It is all encompassing, correct?
But those ones that are 1 to 2 feet are going to be the ones that are going to cost the district a little more money to determine.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Counselor Kirkowka, then Lehman, then
Thank you.
Majinski.
I do have a couple questions, and just some clarity. So lot expansion, people come in to do lot expansion. I'd like to hear where we're at with that process, because I kind of agree with Councillor Howe. I don't know if we have it all cemented in yet. I think it's still, we're still learning it. But who pays for the lot expansion survey on that? Does the District of Tunbridge pay for that survey? When they do it, expand their lot?
Currently,
Currently, if I was gonna expand my lot, first I'd like to see if the process is cement yet. I believe we're still trying to work through it, staff's trying to find the right way. But if I was to extend my lot today, who pays for that survey?
the
It's all for the district.
homeowners are all responsible for all the costs.
Just one clarity, and then I can ask my next question.
Please. Or from Ms. Thompson? Ms. Thompson.
You are correct. According to what we do have for lot expansion, you are responsible for all costs of survey to extend your lot.
Thank you.
And how's the process? The cement, we know exactly how we're doing it now?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. So we just finished the two, or finishing? Ms. Torville responds, so that is right now that, or prior that was going to be an economic development function. Ms. Torville and I took that over while, when we were without a director. So Ms. Torville is currently working with Ms. Finnegan for that right now, but I'll have him respond to how many files and how that process has worked to date.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council. So for the lot expansion project that we've been working on and muddling our way through, there are currently 7 files open. We are pushing ahead with 2 that will be coming up for rezoning, a public hearing on March 7th council meeting. And then after that, we'll be going through with the next steps. We have 2 others, 3 I believe. Council will be hearing about it in the near future as well for approval for their subdivision applications and to move forward with those steps. Some of those lot expansions will involve a rezoning, while others will not require a rezoning. So it's we're working our way through, and we're on top of it. I've been working with Ms. Finnegan, and we're getting there.
Councillor.
So this is my question, and I heard it from staff, that it's to help pay for surveys and stuff if we need to. If I have to expand my lot, I pay for the survey, so if I have to survey somebody that may be encroached, why would that feed back to that resident?
Ms. Thompson.
Why should the rest of us pay?
Thank you. It is because at this time, the district would be enforcing it, and we're telling them that they're encroaching, right? So it would be up to us to prove the encroachment at that time. It is something that we can look into more detail and bring it back to council as well to find a way forward on it and what we could do with that. Chief Curry has an additional response to that, so I'll have him respond.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, so these aren't going to be typical legal surveys, like in the same process that we would have on a purchase of a lot. This is having somebody who is a professional surveyor, instead of me with a laser tape measure trying to say this is where you're at, right? It needs to be more defined using GPS or anything like that. And while Council alluded, we could look at avenues about doing this in-house one day. We're just not there yet. It's not going to be the full pick up 4 pins and have a legal lot plan survey and everything like that. What I envision is looking at, gathering 5 or 6 of these properties at one time, so that we've got these minor issues, and then we go out and we elicit this contractor to come out for a day, measure what we need to, etc., and then it goes away. The majority of this cost is the actual contractor, the amount of the actual bylaw contractor, I should say. The surveying contractor, which is a separate thing, is nominal compared to the bylaw contractor.
Okay, follow up.
Yeah, so just, I get the clarity part that we're trying to prove. If we do prove that somebody is encroached, I mean, there's some that we don't even have to measure, I'm pretty sure of that. Can we not charge that back? Right, if I have to pay for it to extend, so I have a problem with that. I mean, we have people coming in right now paying all these fees up front to extend their property the right way. The people that do not have it done, but let's pay for it. We prove that it's done, then we should be able to charge that back to the homeowner. That's where I guess I want clarity on that. And I think we actually have a local surveying company.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe they don't have a business license in Tilton Ridge in 2022, but I know they did, because I used them.
Mhm.
So, I don't know why we'd be outside contracting out of our community, but so be it.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. So when we're referring to the survey, that wasn't necessarily an outside contractor. It would be a second contractor besides the bylaw enforcement on it. In regard to charging back, we would have to go through our bylaws and probably require a amendment to the bylaw to include that. So we would have to look deeper into that, but just kind of around the head nods or shakes here, we would have to amend bylaw at the time.
Counselor?
So would Andy be followed in on this now? So let's say we amend the bylaw to say that if I'm caught being encroached on district property, district-owned property, and it's surveyed, so staff had to have somebody come in to survey it, am I grandfathered in because I'm already here and I've already encroached?
Ms.
The
Thompson?
amendment covers it. I just want to make sure that we're clear there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thompson.
So, no, because you don't own that land, you would need to remove off of it. So we have a current policy that says when you encroach, you have 30 days to remove your property from being encroached. So it's not like you get fined right away or whatever it is, right? There's a way to work with people, and that's what we would be doing, but we would need to confirm within our bylaws, but we're pretty sure we'd need to amend in order to charge those fees back.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Lehman, then Majinski, then Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're in the process of updating our bylaws. Now, if somebody is encroaching on district land, all we need to do is we give them the 30 days notice. You have the option of leaving it there or removing it, and then you can also apply to expand your lot. So I don't understand why you would grandfather it in. You don't own the land. Either you buy the land or you get off it. It's really that simple. And if you want to buy it, then you buy it from the district. Then we start collecting taxes on that land and you pay for all the surveying. If you're going to be encroaching on district land, there should be a consequence for doing it. And right now there isn't. And we talk about all these bylaws that half of them we don't enforce, and a lot of them need to be updated, so we need to work on that. But we need to hold people accountable. If you're on district property, either get off, buy it, or we'll take it off.
Yeah, and I think that's where this project really stems from. I don't believe there's any talk of any grandfathering, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I do also want to note that there are some areas within town that are no-go for expansion. So just as a note that, there is that third thing that sometimes that people, even if they do want to expand their lot, that they aren't able to because of, access or district infrastructure under the ground. So there are areas where we do have no-go zones. So just as a note, staff have identified areas that cannot be expanded on. Just to note for council and residents that are that we're speaking about this right now.
Absolutely. Councillor Majinski, then Norbury, then Howe.
I'm good, thank you.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'd like to make a motion that, excuse me, my mitts caught up in my mouth. I'd like to make the motion that we remove the encroachment enforcement project from Schedule D protected services.
Seconder. Councillor Howe, discussion. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. The reason why I made the motion is that it seems like we need to come up with a different system. Councillor Lehman, you mentioned consequences. Well, right now the consequences are everyone's going to have to pay for us to go and enforce this on everyone else, right? I think we should come back with something different, right? Like we find these offenders, we tell them move it back, purchase land, and if you want to contest it, then we bring in a surveyor at that point in time. And if you are encroaching and you contest that you're encroaching, and it turns out you are, you pay the survey cost. I just think we can come up with something better, a different approach for this. It doesn't cost $75,000, which is my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howe.
I was going to say something pretty similar to what Chris was saying. It's about conflict resolution, right? Like you can go and tell somebody, I think that your garage is off your property, and they say, absolutely it isn't. Then you come in and, Dustin says, here's the pin here and here's the pin here. it's off the property. All those pins aren't in the right spot. Okay, well, we're running a measuring tape out. You're supposed to be in within 100 feet. You're at 105 feet. You're outside of your property line. No, I still don't think I am. Okay, well, we are going to initiate a conflict resolution here. If you're found out to be off your property line, you're going to pay for it, the surveying that we're doing. Plus, you're still going to have to pay your own surveying to then expand your lot if you're able to do it in that area. So, like, I think what Chris is saying, we should take a crack at this ourselves first. I think that there may be some real easy ones, especially in areas that you can't expand into. The DTR only has to pick up 3 or 4 pins. I know people say that they're removed, but they're a long ways down, those pins. And you pick them up with the pin finder, you got your straight line down there, and if stuff is completely obvious that it's outside, I think our bylaw, we have, I don't know if I know the fire chief can help out with it, but I don't know if the deputy fire chief can, or Mike Thibodeau's position.
Protective services.
Okay, so we have 3 people in there. What is it, sorry?
Oh, sorry, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. So capacity, you are correct, capacity will be a bit of a concern, but I will have Chief Curry respond. Curry?
So Mayor and Council, Councilor Howe's question, Mike Thibodeau's position is the deputy fire chief.
Thank you.
So right now, that deputy fire chief doesn't provide bylaw enforcement services outside of extenuating circumstances, coverage, etc. They're not confirmed to be a bylaw officer for the municipality. Myself and the bylaw officer are. Capacity-wise, there are some cases where it is very much clear that we know we have people that have trailers and cars and everything like that off the property. We're not worried about surveying and being accurate terribly with those types of situations. That's pretty clear to us that you're encroaching. We've been waiting for the approval process for lot expansion to be created before we can actually give that person who is encroaching an option. But when we're talking about undertaking 20 years, roughly, give or take, of encroachment in the municipality on a lot of district property, capacity-wise, that's going to be beyond what we can do just with the 2 of us. Between daily operations, both with my position and hers, taking care of everything else, plus doing this, undertaking that large of a project, isn't something that we can do in-house.
Follow-up? Follow-up, Councilor?
Yeah, okay, I get where he's coming from. I just still not comfortable with it. I'd rather be in-house. I'm not big on hiring more people. I don't like more staff, but maybe it's something that it could be incorporated into Mike Thibodeau's job, or we look at some type of a short-term contract for helping bylaw or something. I don't know. I'm just not crazy about a contractor who comes in for 6 months and is gone, and then we still have the issues 3 years down the road. Nobody being trained. So I'm against it. I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Kirkowka.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, and I was gonna state that too, is, the capacity issue is looking at how we do that is putting forward a motion to have a staff advertise for a 1-year contract. Instead of 6 months at 75 grand, I don't know what Ms. Thompson pays some of her staff contracts that she's used, but I'm pretty sure we could almost get a full year out of 75,000. If it was as a contract instead of a 6-month contract. If somebody's here for 12 months of the year. Just my thoughts on that. It's a lot of money for a short term. That's my concern there. I understand that staff can only do so much every day on their day-to-days. I understand, I think that's why staff's reaching out for using a contractor. Maybe we're better off a 1-year contract position for an employee.
Ms. Thompson, is there a timeline on this? Where does the 6-month come from? Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. So that's when there's no snow on the ground. Sorry, it is. It would be from April till October is when they would be able to do the encroachment. So, just talking to Chief Curry here, that 60,000 would be for 6 months, and they do all the paperwork and everything that goes with it. In this regard, in that contractor we're speaking about, I did work with them in Saskatchewan, and it made my life a lot easier when it came to bylaw enforcement and different things like that. And they did all the paperwork, and then if something did end up going through the court system, they appeared in court for me at the time. At that time, I didn't have to go to court, and I seemed to get a lot more compliance having that outside in rather than doing it myself, because I was bylaw in the community I was in. So there was a lot more compliance and a lot more understanding when it was somebody in a uniform and from outside of the community rather than me going to the houses to try and work with people. And capacity for myself, I didn't do a lot of it, so it made it easier for our community to move forward. And that's what we were looking at it with this project, is that, like we said, it's a long time of encroachment, and for us to bring somebody in on an annual 1-year contract wouldn't necessarily, what would we do to find them work throughout the winter months at this time, right? So we know that this would be specifically for encroachment, and then it would be after that, if we put them on a 1-year contract, what do we do with them in the other, even if it would be 4 months that through winter that we wouldn't have work for them. Or
Okay.
minimal work.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirby, then Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I was really happy to see this on the capital budget. I think we're addressing an issue that's been on the table for a long time. I thought it was really beneficial for our staff, and at the end of it, we'd have the information needed, what we do with that information after, it was all gathered. I think it would also help with lot expansion, because there could be people out there not even knowing they're on Crown land. I'm still in favor of this. I think it's a good step forward. It's actually doing something, which we haven't done. And I think with staff, they brought together something. I mean, $75,000 sounds a lot, but an auto extraction tool replacement is $36,000. So I don't think we're too far off. So I think it would be good bang for the buck. In my opinion, it's a good step forward.
I agree. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in favor of this just because if we do bring somebody in, it is a professional. We're not just bringing in, we're putting out a request for proposal to anybody. It's not just like animal control where we could have anybody from the public to do the job. This is somebody that we're bringing outside of the community, and as a professional has done this, and they might even be able to pass on some of that information to our staff, So I think that's where I'm kind of sold on it. I'm not sold on the price, but I also think that it should go to an RFP so we have multiple candidates, not just one chosen to be brought in. I think it should go to multiple, just like any piece of equipment we want to buy or anything we want to get repaired. We have multiple people that could apply and bid, and then we could see their business case of why they can provide something to our community.
Ms. Thompson, will there be an RFP for this project if it goes ahead?
Staff can create one. At this time, it could be sole sourced because of the expertise that is required, and not many people are able to provide that. So it could go out to RFP, but it would take a little bit longer, and we wouldn't start the project as early. And because it could be sole sourced because of the expertise required, that was intention.
Thank you. Councillor Kurkalka, then Hal.
Ms. Thompson had mentioned in the staff, it said it's $60K for the contract. Is the other $15K for serving if needed?
Ms. Thompson.
Correct.
Councillor Hal.
So would this strictly be for encroachment enforcement on DTR lands? Or if it's encroached on other people's lands, or you've built your garage too close to the fence line, or we've talked about having firewood too close to your house, or derelict vehicles in your front yard? Where are we looking?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. At this time, it would only be for your encroachment on DTR lands.
Okay.
Anything else that would be bylaw related would need to be continued to be our bylaw enforcement officer.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns about the motion? Motion on the floor. Ms. Thompson, could we get that read back, please?
Mayor and Council, the motion was that we remove the encroachment enforcement project from Schedule B.
Thank you. Other comments, concerns? I'm opposed to the motion. I think I agree with Councillor Kirby. I think this is a good step forward, and I do agree with our CAO in the methods as well. And I think this is a long-standing issue that finally has an option for most residents if they are encroaching. We have been waiting for the purchasing of extra DTR land process, so we have that in place now. Unfortunately, not every lot is available for that, but I think this is a good step forward, and we're actually starting to do something about it, so I'm going to be voting opposed to the motion. Any other comments, concerns? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Defeated, thank you. Any other comments, questions in regards to this project? Moving on to Fire Hall Facility Assessment Study. Councillor Hall?
Can I just get an explanation on this, what we're doing here?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I will have Chief Curry respond. Chief Curry?
Mayor, Council, so this is recommendation 3 from the Fire Services Master Plan. In previous strategic planning meetings, we've identified that the fire hall is a priority, whether it be replacement, refurbishment, expansion, or the like. So recommendation 3 was to evaluate the options, therefore renovation, expansion, or replacement. Using the RDH study that we had done in 2017, using that as a baseline, but going further into depth in terms of what is actually legislative requirements. Fire halls built in 1982 are vastly, or fire halls built in 2022 are vastly different than fire halls built in 1982. And fire halls have grown, especially ours, in terms of the services that we provide, size of equipment, trucks, etc. So this is going to take into all of that and then give council a very comprehensive way forward, whether that is for renovation, expansion, or replacement.
Follow-up, Councillor?
Yeah, when we talk about replacement of the fire hall, concerns me. We pushed off for a couple of years not doing a complete renovation on the fire hall and a new roof. If we're literally that close to the point where we might have to get rid of this fire hall because it doesn't meet our needs anymore, or the building's too old, or whatever comes out of it, to me, yeah, we have to be within legislative requirements for WorkSafe BC, and if that means we need to build something on the side of it or expand it or whatever, a small amount, I can lean that direction. But as for replacing that building, I'm nowhere near that. And to me, I don't know if I want to go down the road to spend $75,000 to have somebody tell us that that's what you need to do. If there's something that we're missing in there that that needs to be in there, a dryer or whatever, we need a room for the dryer that we've purchased now or whatever, then let us know what that is. But to spend $75,000 and have somebody tell us that, yeah, you should replace your building, and then we can still make the decision that we're not gonna replace the building, I just think it's kind of a waste of money. As far as I'd rather say, hey, take $75,000 and see what we can do for expanding your building. I'm in no way ready to look at expanding the fire hall or building a new building at all. So.
Yeah, but I think this assessment study would give us the 3 options as well, the possible renovation or expansion or replacement. So I think it would be a much more comprehensive study rather than just a recommendation to remove or replace the fire hall, in my opinion.
I don't doubt that it wouldn't be, but for $75,000 to get that opinion, that's a lot of money. I'd just as soon have our fire chief tell us, here's the 3 things that we're missing out of our building. That was built in 1982, but now in 2022, you've got to have this, and have the
I gotcha.
Building inspector from the regional district come in and say, yeah, you should do this and this, and it's going to cost you $300,000. Well, we're a quarter of the way with the $75,000 if it's a $300,000 renovation that we need to do, rather than spend this, and then it's going to push us even further down the road while we wait to get the information back on it, right? So, where would we be if we approved the building retrofit and all that? Where would we be today? We'd be at the point where we're saying, geez, the building's not big enough and we gotta expand it already. So to me, I think it's better off. Let's find out exactly what it is before you tell us to spend $75,000.
Ms. Thompson, thoughts?
I'll have Chief Curry respond.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, as you may recall, there's been considerable reports that have been put forward to Council over the years talking about building envelopes, et cetera, to the point where we actually looked at facade updates and concept designs and everything like that. The last number, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm speaking off the cuff, was north of $1 million to do work at the fire hall right now. Now that was including a roof and facade upgrades and everything like that, but at the end of the day, we're still not including many of the things that don't bring us up to legislative requirements. Shower facilities, decon facilities, the addition of a bay that we can get rid of, renting off-site facility, and consolidating all of our equipment into one area. So this study will give you all of those options without spending. I agree with Councillor Howe, if it was simply a $300,000 ask, and I would come to you and say this is what it's going to cost, but it is far more than that. We're talking over $1 million, and I think at that point, that $75,000 initial investment may prove to be a better use of money than me just standing up here and saying, $300,000 for X, Y, and Z at the hall.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Thank you, Chief Curry, for your explanation. You know, to go into that, you know, we can have somebody else come in and we can look at other options. We can see an expansion. We can get, you know, the potentially the training grounds. But also, I've noticed when grants come up, they really want to see these studies beforehand, right? Like the internet connectivity study, the daycare, the child care spaces. They want to have these assessments done beforehand. And these people that have it, they get bumped up to the front of the line, or people who don't have it get excluded, right? So, I mean, we hear it's going to be $1 million at least, $75,000. This is a lot of times we need to have this even to get grant. So, I'm all for it. Just on, we get a comprehensive package telling us what all needs to be done to bring us up to code, to increase efficiency, which is important, and then potentially we're looking at maybe grant funding. We can have this bit of ammunition in our back pocket to help. Money in the bank.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm generally not a big fan of studies. They cost a lot, but at the end of the day, if you're going to put the burden of making a decision on the fire chief, I don't think that's fair either. Because if you're going to put a million plus recommendation to council from one individual, the fire chief, and they come up with it, I don't know if that's fair as well. That's a pretty big ask, and having somebody from an outside organization, outside company come in and say their professional opinion and give you the options, that's probably a little bit better than having one staff member come to us for one big ask. I don't think it's very fair to do that to the fire chief.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkcalkin?
Thank you, Richard. And staff had already mentioned, we have one report, and I believe he's fairly close to the price tag of the renovation part of it. And that was just I'm not going to say it wasn't the inside, a bit of inside, but mainly it was the outside. It was the outside part of that building was over the million. You know, I know they were going to do some beautifications with windows and different doors on their truck side and stuff like that. But it was $1 million. Man, I don't have my laptop here, but I can't remember what Grad Cash paid for their brand new hall. But they just finished building a brand new hall. I believe it was around the $3.5 to $4 million. So when you look at doing an outside shell for $1 million, which still is, and the chief had already mentioned in regards to some of the stuff that they're asking legislatively to have in there. I mean, we also have to look at that, and I hope that has that in the study, because there is differences between full-time and part-time and the services we offer compared to other municipalities. So I hope that's all within that report, not just one side of the report.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Howe?
I mean, what Councillor Norbury says makes a lot of sense. I mean, if we can utilize this to get grant funding, that's fantastic. I just like what Councillor Majinski says, I've seen these studies come across, we look at it, don't like the price tag, and it moves on down the line. Is there a likelihood that we can get grant funding for something like this? Are we aware of building an entirely new building? Like, that we could get it? That we get a portion of it, or?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Chief Curry respond, but he was nodding his head there, so I'll have him respond. Chief Curry?
Mayor and Council, you're absolutely, there's grant funding available for these types of projects, critical infrastructure, especially in emergency preparedness. There's lots of opportunities. The District of Mackenzie is currently right now building their fire hall, and I believe, don't quote me again, but I think it's like 90% covered by grant funding.
Wow.
Thank
Not
you.
100% sure on the 90%, but a considerable amount was covered by grant funding.
I guess my only concern with this one is we're focusing on the fire hall and not looking at Public Works and Town Hall. Last time we had these envelopes in front of us, we had all three. And I'm just wondering what the plan is for the other two, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. So you are correct, we did have all three. Last year, we did update the town hall. Through RDH, we updated that study or that report, and we did put in a grant for that, and that had showed $1.6 million, and that was basically just the exterior as well. So we had talked a little bit at strategic planning, that we want to do assessments of our buildings and maybe not have to spend that on the exteriors. Maybe it's just windows and doors and maybe some insulation, right? So that is where we're at. It's kind of, we'll work on it in-house as we have the availability to get those general assessments done on what we need to do for our buildings between Public Works and Town Hall.
Yeah, that's really my only concern is we did see the assessments a couple years ago, and it's kind of fallen by the wayside to some degree. Grant unsuccessful, obviously, but I just don't want to lose sight of that to a point where we're having to invest a lot into a new building possibly. Okay, any other questions, concerns in regard to this assessment study? Okay, moving on to the Wildland Urban Interface Sprinkler Protection Trailer. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'm hoping we can get a little explanation on protection trailer. I do understand that the idea of putting a sprinkler on everyone's houses and running it from the water supply is not feasible, as it would run our water supply out rather quickly. So I'm kind of curious to understand how much time would this give us? Just explain the
A
value.
little more detail.
Yeah.
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I'll have Chief Curry respond to that as well. Chief Curry?
Mayor and Council, so this trailer would be a Type 2 wildland trailer. It's designed primarily to protect about 25 homes. So it would carry the necessary pumps, bladders, hoses, sprinkler heads, etc., to ensure that we could, for lack of a better term, deflect a fire's path away from town. So depending on which trajectory a fire was encroaching into town, we could strategically set up new sprinklers, provide that wet line barrier of humidity and water, and we can actually kind of divert it around town. Councilor Norbury is correct. Putting up a sprinkler on everybody's home is not going to be efficient, and we will deplete water supplies in both our reservoir in no time flat, especially if we had to evacuate the community. This would be strategic. We'd have bladders. We could run off the municipal hydrant system, but in large cases like this, we would actually have a shuttle service with bladders and pumps and stuff like that. We'd be pulling out of creeks and things like that away from the municipal water supply. These units are typically deployed throughout the province during wildfire events. We would have some training for our own people in order how to deploy them properly, and it would be in concert with the Office of the Fire Commission and the BC Wildfire Service.
Okay, follow up, Councillor.
Thank you, Bertrand. I have two. First, so another question came up because you're mentioning the methodology of obtaining water. So we could potentially, with this sprinkler system, we could potentially have an ongoing water supply to these 25 homes. Is that correct?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. Chief Curry?
Mayor and Council, so what you're talking about is a shuttle service or a tender shuttle. So we would have tenders, or you call them water haulers, water tankers. In the fire service, we call them tenders, and they would be going around on a consistent basis, and they would be ensuring that those bladders are full at any given time. So you have, very technical, but you've got pumps strategically placed. One pump can do X homes, one bladder can do X homes. You're talking about like a 5/8 or a 1/2-inch garden hose. So there's continually monitoring, and you're only filling up probably 10 bladders, something like that. Like maybe less than that, depending on what you're at. You could pull a lot out of these things. We're not talking small kiddie pools. We're talking 1,500 gallon type water troughs.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, sorry, thank you everyone for your patience. Are you only asking for one because that's all that we believe is needed? Could we potentially use more? I mean, 25 houses is a reasonable size. I mean, I'm not an expert in fire interfacing with fires, but do we need more? Like, should we get 2? Should we get 3?
Ms. Thompson?
Chief Curry?
Mayor and Council, at this time 1 is considered to be sufficient. As I said, this will be in concert with the Office of the Fire Commission, Fire Commissioner's Office and the BC Wildfire Service. There are strategically placed around the province a few of these things, but they are moved around the province to where the greatest need is. If the District of Tumbler Ridge chooses to purchase our own, it would be here, centrally located. So we wouldn't have to wait for, there is 2 of them, for example, in Fort St. John. But if they've been moved elsewhere in the province, we could be waiting up to 24 hours or greater for something where we could have them at our ready disposal at a moment's notice.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Grant money. Is there no grant money out there for these?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Chief Curry?
Mayor and Council, there's grant money for a variety of different initiatives. Currently, through the Fire Smart process, UBCM has grant money for that, but it typically does not qualify for vehicles or equipment, like trailered equipment such as this. If we want to do training, that would be grant eligible if we wanted to go through it, but there may be opportunities. I have been approached in the past through windmill companies, such as Miko Wind and Pattern Energy had approached me, this is going back 3 years ago or and change, about partnering with some type of a unit, understanding that we both have considerable interests when it comes to wildfire protection. So there may be avenues to partner on something like this.
Follow-up?
So, thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, staff, because that was my next question, was partnerships. The other question I have is, for you, Your Worship, is PRRD. I mean, I know we have mutual aid agreements signed already, but to me, is this something we should be taking to PRRD to see if there's some other municipalities that want to contribute to it? I mean, my understanding would be if Chetwynd needed, our fire department would take it there. So to me, when we talk about mutual aid agreements and they have those signed, why would we not look at the PRRD to see for assisting the funding on a trailer for this area itself? Never mind the ones at Fort St. John, and Chief Curry's already mentioned, they could go south if that's what they're needing. I believe they're BC Wildfire Services trailers. They're not owned by the city of Fort St. John. So is this something that we should be approaching the PRRD about and looking for a partnership there as well?
It's a possibility. Yeah, we haven't really discussed, to be honest, but I think, in my opinion, I think this is added to the project list for Tumbler Ridge. You know, I think this is going to be an asset for our community. And to be honest, I wouldn't be very comfortable loaning it out if we were to purchase it. I think we're purchasing this to try and give us some added protection and possibly a barrier to divert. And I certainly wouldn't want to have to go out to Chetwynd to get it if we needed it. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Yeah, and I agree with you, Mayor Bertrand. I want this to be ours. Because, I mean, a lot of times, we're the smallest person, we're the smallest community in the region, so the other place gets it and it stays over there. And that's nice. I want this for us, our residents, so that at a moment's notice, we can hook it all up, it's good to go. And great, I think it's great to try and find grants to cut the cost down. I agree. At the end of the day, $75,000, it could mean $25,000.
Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. We do have a vehicle to pull this in case of an emergency. There is one set aside. We wouldn't have to get an extra vehicle.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Chief Curry respond again. Chief Curry?
Mayor and Council, so ideally our new squad, when it was spec'd out, didn't actually have the capability to tow with a Class 7, which I think is what's on it. So would have no problem doing that. In light of that, we do have public works vehicles that could be utilized to tow this as well.
Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, so I appreciate your comments there, but again, I will bring up mutual aid. Maybe the chief can fill us all in, but I believe if there's a forest fire in Chetwynd, that trailer will go there. it doesn't mean that we don't have a fire 3 hours later and it hits Tumble Ridge. The trailer is gonna be, that's why I'm saying that maybe we should be asking the PRD for some funding, because they may have a station in Tumble Ridge. And I understand with mutual the agreement, if we have staff or units available and another department is signed on with mutual aid, those trucks will deploy them. So to me, my understanding is if we buy this trailer and they have a forest fire somewhere in the area and they need that trailer, and they call for mutual aid and we have staff available, that would go there. I'd like confirmation with that when we talk about, we want to have it in Tumble Ridge for, I'm not disagreeing. But if there's a chance that with the mutual aid through the PRD, and we can get some partnership through the PRD for this, why wouldn't we ask?
Sure. No, I
Why
completely
tax the
understand.
residents to the full $75,000? For it to go to Fort St. John, knock on wood or Chatwood, and then we have one here a couple days later while our trailers in one of those communities.
Yeah, and I guess some clarification on the mutual aid agreement would be appreciated, please, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I will have Chief Curry respond regarding mutual aid.
Mayor and Council, so the current mutual aid agreement that is in place with the southeast communities, so that would be City Dawson Creek, Tom's Lake, Kuskoopie, and ourselves is the current one that's in place. Dictates that when we have the available staff, we will send them for a request. Now, that does not mean that we have to send everything at our disposal. Previously, I've spoken to council and said that there's no way that we are going to let our aerial, for example, leave town. The sprinkler protection unit would be the same, especially in a high, if we're experiencing high fire season here, elsewhere in the Peace region, we're likely to be experiencing something similar, or the possibility exists for here. So I would not feel comfortable with the sprinkler trailer leaving town and leaving us defenseless for that type of a resource. SPUs, or sprinkler protection units like this trailer, are not typically your frontline type of suppression on a wildfire. There's a lot of things that are going to happen. What they're going to happen when this is going to be deployed is when the town is going to be evacuated, or it's not safe for us to be here. We can't be at this location for an extended period of time, and then we'll set up these sprinklers so that we don't have to be in the hot zone, so to speak. That's the intention behind this. The regional chiefs for the Peace River Regional District are working on what's called major events mutual aid. So this is going to be a little bit broader than just the South Peace one. You'll see this probably coming to you in the next few months for your consideration. But just as a sneak peek, it would actually allow for things like a wildland fire north of Fort St. John, when we're waiting up to 24 hours for any other resource in the province. So they need an engine in Fort St. John. They may end up tasking somebody from Lone Butte or Kamloops to come up here, and it takes a considerable amount of time. We're going to be working internal in the piece so that we can action those things faster without waiting for the roll-up time for resources to arrive on scene. At that point, that trailer may be something that we may want to look at, but for the standalone event, the grass fire or anything like that, that trailer would not be leaving town. And that's why I haven't said anything about reimbursement at the Office of the Fire Commissioner rates for loaning it to the province or anything like that. My intention was for this trailer to stay within our community.
Councillor Kirkcalkin.
So just cover that, and I totally agree with or understand where Chief Curry comes from, and I've heard about this other agreement, or maybe shouldn't have spoke a turn on it, but there is a chance, and that's why I say about including the PRD. But my other question would be back to staff, and that would be replacement. If we could just go over that, so it's $75K up front, how often are we looking at possibly having to change out the bellies, the holding tanks, the hoses, pumps? We have a pump for Jaws of Life, most people know it as. It's from 2012, 10 years from changing it out. So I'd just like to hear some of the replacement years on some of this equipment.
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I will have Chief Curry respond as well to that. Chief Curry?
Mayor and Council, the typical lifespan of a bladder, for example, it all depends on the use, especially out in the field. We're not planning on taking this specific trailer out into wildfire conditions. So it's not going to be bouncing down a Forest Service road or anything like that. This is meant to protect the homes of Tumble Ridge. So we're talking about manicured lawns, asphalt pavement, or anything like that. Landscaped, not twigs, sticks, rocky conditions, or anything like that. So we're expecting that the lifespan is going to be considerable more than what typical Office of the Fire Commissioner or the BC Wildfire Service would experience with theirs. I would estimate we're probably going to get between 15 and 20 years out of it. What may end up happening is on the operational side, rebuilding of the pumps. That's where I see a little bit more of a cost. We're gonna have to come up with some methodology to make sure that they're either being rebuilt or serviced. Engines and stuff like that can be done in-house, but what happens when we have an impeller? We're spending a pump is about $4,000, so what stage are we actually looking at with that? So there's gonna be some things that we still have to iron out through it, but it's not all gonna come due after year one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Majinski.
I'm good, thank you.
Councillor Kirkowka.
Sorry, I need a couple seconds. Storage, where are we storing this trailer at?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Chief Perry.
Mayor and Council, so in the off-season, the intention is that the trailer will be winterized and parked in the Public Works yard and locked. When in operation, it would be similar to what we do with Squad. We would fill up things with water, make sure things are full of gas, all the like, so it's ready for at a moment's notice. Storage is still up in the air. For the off-season, we would likely be at a training facility so that we don't have to waste time going through Public Works and locks and all that other kind of stuff. We just go to our training facility, it's right there, we hook onto it and go. There is opportunity that we could put it at the fire hall and actually lock it with a chain, etc., in the parking lot adjacent to our training facility. We've made some room, moving some other things around. So it'd be actually on the back side of the facility near the RC&P parking so that we could just hook on and go if we needed to.
Thank you. Councillor Lehman.
That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor. What about if there would be any insurance kickbacks of having something like that in our community? Would there be
Benefits?
Benefits, yeah.
Make benefits better than kickbacks. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. At this time, it's not something that we've looked into, the benefits of having it and if it would reduce our fire insurance in the community.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Norbury.
Mayor Bertrand, keep it going. I'll make a motion to accept Schedule B, Protection Services on the Capital and Special Projects budget.
Seconder. Councillor Kirby. Any other discussion? Call to question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. How are we doing? Do we want a 5-minute bio break here or continue on?
7.
Wait till 7? Okay. All right, Schedule E, Public Works. Flatbed Creek Campground Erosion Project. Councillor Howe.
No, I just want to point out that it's a third of the cost that we originally talked about that we were ready to sign, seal, and deliver last budget for $1 million. So congrats to staff for picking this up and doing a much better job with taxpayers' money. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. And that's exactly what I was going to mention because we were over $800,000 last year. This is a much nicer number. I can deal with this a little bit better. Thank you.
Councillor Howe.
One final thing, it talks in here about tree removal. So I'm wondering if that's tree removal for existing trees that are on the bank that are washed out, or does that have to do with tree removal of trees that are within the creek in the logjam?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I will have Director Simcock respond. Director Simcock?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're gonna have to probably accelerate the tree removal item on this venture here to incorporate it before breakup, or we're gonna have some problems. The significant price difference in this ledger was the lock block wall retainment that's already there that sustained numerous floods already in the area. I don't know why they didn't do that in the first place. The logs will have to be removed, and we're trying to incorporate that into another process. When I'm open to move, is going to be bringing a rubber track unit in, take the logs out. We are targeting, if further on in the ledger, you'll see, I'll speak to it, that those logs should be taken out before breakup to eliminate a possible blockage of Flatbed Creek.
Okay.
Thank you.
To answer your question, yes, incorporate those logs that are
I would assume there's Ministry of Environment or something approval of the waterway ministry for that, Ms. Thompson, is that correct? Is there a process for that with the province?
I will have Director Simcock respond to that as well. Director Simcock?
The ministry had already outlined the oceans and fisheries limitations of natural species in the watershed table. The rubber track and reach out with the slings so you can actually move all those logs without having an in-waterworks permit.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, moving on to downtown core sidewalk renewal. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I want to speak in support of this one. Getting a massive grant. We know our downtown sidewalks are in horrible shape. Just walking from the community center up here, just along both sides of the street right here need to be done up and down. Like just two streets, and we already know that one block directly across from us is $75,000 for just one, and we're gonna have to tear this up, put new stuff down. It's going to cost more than $75,000 a block per side. We have a massive grant here. We absolutely need to get our sidewalks done.
Thank you. Councilor Howe.
And I like too that it's just Main Street. You know, it's not, we're not going to do the entire downtown core in one shot. Gives us a crack at it to see how it goes, and you know, if it doesn't go well, then you make a different decision on the other portions of the downtown core. But I do like that, you know, the majority of it is covered.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Thompson, this grant has been approved or is still in application?
Thank you. We applied for this grant in September of 2021, and I had reached out in January to Western River Diversification, and they had no announcement date on the grant yet, so we do not have the grant yet, and we don't have a date of announcement for it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Councilor Lehman.
Is the plan to replace it just with concrete again?
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. In regard to what the urban design guidelines are, which we will be bringing back, that will determine what the ultimate look is going to be. But at that time, yeah, it is just plain concrete is what had been approved on the urban design guidelines. And Director Simcock has something he'd like to add.
Talking with the senior management staff and incorporating to answer both questions here. The one road sectional system was set out for access and egress, not only for essential services, but to keep the businesses operational. What happens is you play leapfrog, you do sporadic systems independently so that you don't rip out a full section all at once. You do it in sections so that you can still walk on existing walkways and have access to businesses. And then you pull that, once that cured on a 3-day break for core testing, then you can actually have them walk on the new concrete and pull up the stuff in the middle. As far as funding goes, we actually talked with senior staff regarding what if we didn't get the funding. So I'll assure you that under the slip, trips, and falls guidelines, anything greater than 3/4 of an inch identified as a trip hazard has to be replaced anyway. So they'll be coming forward, if we don't get the funding, this is what we're going to need to put aside to do the worst case first scenario anyway.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Howe, did you have some? No. Okay, any other questions? Councilor Kirkowka?
Yeah, so just on it, do we have a total? In regards to what staff had just talked about? If we don't get the grants on successful, we still have to do
For priority,
slips, trips, and falls. So what's that amount?
Ms. Thompson?
Because that amount should be, to me, in this budget today, in case it isn't.
Approved. Ms. Thompson?
I'll have Director Simcock respond.
Yeah, it worked out to just over 2.6 million for the total town to be re-and-read. That's with the steps. That's with the urban system guideline limitations of the tree grates, the integration of the step, and the Roman circle area to be reincorporated. And the reason why that was so great, well, in the concrete venture, you have to do the low line LEDs, which is a low voltage lighting wire and stuff that needs to be running, and that would be incorporated in the straight concrete price. So we'd have to have an electrical contractor work alongside with the concrete person to read all the low lying elevated feeds for street lighting and stuff that are in the interlocking paths right now. So it worked out to be a 4.3-year project, to be more tangible, to be accepted financially in the process. And I can send that forward to you on the 4.3-year program.
But as far as the priority slips, trips, and falls replacements, if this grant isn't successful, do we know how much we're going to have to put aside to correct those issues, Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Staff will bring that back at the next budget deliberations. We will figure out a number, or we will discuss and find that sweet spot number that we need, and we will bring that back for and propose it to council.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Councillor Kirkowka. You know, a lot of times grant-dependent items, if the grant isn't successful, it just goes by the wayside. And these are some issues that we certainly need to address, so it is important to know that number as well. Councillor Kirkowka.
Well, it's to know the number, but make sure it's added into our budget. Even if we have a surplus, we need to make sure it's added, because listening to Ms. Thompson, we don't know when the announcement's gonna be.
Correct.
So to me, again, I believe staff had also mentioned about, they don't want to hear about all these extra items coming in after the budget's approved. This could be a very big ticket number for the slip, trips, and falls. So that's the only reason I'm asking for that, because I think it should be in our budget, to at least debate it.
Right.
You know, I understand that it's whatever portions, it's over 4 years, but it should be in there, so I apologize, but if the grant doesn't come, we need to have money set forward for 2022, so they can start the process.
Absolutely. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. Within the budget, we do show $366,000 coming from PRA funding. We would be able to address just the sidewalk fixes, the replacement. We wouldn't be able to work at the drainage and everything else that would go with it. So we want to confirm that and get a little more detailed numbers to council. So when you are looking at the budget, you do see that 366 is funded by the DTR, which would help us to make sure that those worse, or the
Safety hazards.
yeah, the safety hazard ones would be fixed, but it would only be the sidewalk and not the drainage or anything else that should be addressed at the time.
Right. Councillor.
Sorry, and I thought the 366 added to the 750 was for your total budget project. You add those two numbers together, that comes up for your total.
Correct.
Okay, so that's why the 366, that does the slip, trips, and falls, is what you're saying?
Possibly.
Possible.
They will confirm that next meeting, I believe, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I'll have Director Simcock respond again. Director Simcock?
And so already we've had 2 certified contractors come and walk the entire town with me till late at night. Unfortunately, the week after that, we had a snowfall, and we kept on getting snowfall, so we'll be able to figure out, we need to do what we call a topo of exactly what needs to be done. That'll give you a percentile and what you have to do initially first to take care of the major hazards and be due diligent under the slip, trips, and falls guideline. That would be the initial DTR that I talked to Lisa Taggerty about, finance, regarding the slip, trips, and falls. Until we actually do a full topo, do a percentile what needs to be done immediately, and then incorporate that into the urban plan design. We don't know until we actually know. I've got a couple contractors' numbers. But that's what set me to the 4.3-year program for the total town. But that's very crude mathematics. I like being a little tighter. But first we have to address the situation. We have to do a topo to get in percentile first.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up, Councillor? Go ahead.
I believe staff's gonna sharpen their pencils and bring back a proper number. Like, I just don't think this is the right number yet, if we don't get the grant. I just wanna make sure we're debating that into this budget.
To ensure it's included.
Yes,
So that work
if
is
it's $600,000.
Yep.
If the grant doesn't come through, it's staffing $600,000 to start the process and do the most dangerous ones. We should be having that in the budget for debate.
Correct. Yeah. Ms. Thompson, are you okay with that? Next meeting?
Correct.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Sorry, to me, it sounded like if we didn't get the grant, we can still do the slips and falls for the 366. If we can move this forward today, we'd still have enough to do that just needed. Am I incorrect in that?
They are believing so, but we'll confirm next meeting. Counselor.
So we're gonna put off approving this tonight. That's what we're saying, or this section.
This schedule,
We can still approve it.
yeah, I think
Okay.
it's fine to
Fair enough.
approve. I think it just needs clarification on contingency if we don't get the grant. Yeah.
Okay, that's-
Okay.
Good.
All right, any other questions in this regard? Interpretive trail visual enhancements? Counselor Kurkowka.
I'm sorry, if we can just get an overview from staff on this, install proper solar panels? Like, I believe we had solar lights there, I'm not sure, if maybe Councilor Norbury can fill us in, but I believe that was done through the community forest when they built the trail for the district of Tumble Ridge. Just want clarity, or was it lighting done by council to pay in regards to budget, and we paid for that, or was that the community forest that put it this in?
Not 100% sure. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. That would be something that we would need to detail. I do know that enhancements on the interpretive trail, that was rural dividend funding, and a portion that was used from the community forest as well. So this is the rural dividend funding that we have left over. And I will have Director Simcock explain the project a little bit more for clarity.
Thank you.
So as I was introduced to the interpretive trail, I found out like the golf course, there was some work and stuff done that didn't make sense. What didn't make sense is you put a 25-foot solar panel system, self-lit walking pathway, in a 60 to 48-foot tree canopy shade cover, which never accumulated enough sun energy to keep the batteries going. So ever since they were put in, even year one, the batteries were taken out by public works staff, and the heads were taken off because they would never work during the cold or reduced sunlight times. What I recommend is there's a field just up from the interpretive trail. That's a flat lying area that you could put an A-frame, 22-degree pitch, solid structure, welded, galvanized, that would hold the 300-watt crystalline solar panels and just run the wire down to the battery systems at the lights. So you'd have an area where there's support of sunlight, batteries charge.
From what I recall, those lights were deemed as pilots. They were explained to me that they were a pilot program or a test to see if they are the right lighting for that type of the trail system. And I wasn't sure at the time if there was confirmation that that is the correct light. So are we talking about using those same pedestals, but creating an energy source actually in the sun? Is that what we're talking about, Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Director Simcock, please.
Yes, moving an A-frame system up on the hill where the sun can get it at 3/4 of the day so that we wouldn't have to replace the batteries and that the lights would work throughout the year.
But my question really is, are those lights adequate, or should we be looking at a different system?
It would depend on what kind of money you wanted to put into a walking pathway. They shed light, they're adequate. The power supplying mechanism itself is not the proper mechanism for a tree canopy 60 feet high.
Absolutely. Councilor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor. If these are prototypes, lights, can we get a refund on them and say if they don't work? If we paid for them and they're in their, if they don't have a guarantee?
No, I don't think that they're prototypes. I think they work quite well if they're situated in a place where it can capture sunlight, as far as I understand. Ms. Thompson, is that correct?
Thank you. I do not know. This is the first time that I've heard of that, so we would need to go back into the files if we can locate them to determine what has been done.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mowbray?
We just need to get power to them, right? Sound good?
Pardon me, sorry?
We just need to get power to the lights, right? Like maybe the lights work, we don't know. We just gotta get power to them, right? They're running at whatever, 25, 35%. The community force, we just give the money, right? We're not a management, project manager. We just give them the money. So, it's a grant. Let's get the trail lit, because I've heard that from other members that there's just not enough light out there. Like they're dim. Maybe the lights work. We just need power. So
Let's get power to it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Majinski?
Do we know how many lights are out there? Maybe there's not enough lights. Maybe that's why it's dark out there. Maybe they need to see more because the hill and the stairs are not lit. That's probably the concern. And the other side has a steep hill and it's not lit. So maybe that's a concern too. Maybe that's where the lights are coming from. Not just because the lights are dim and they're on the flat surface along the top edge. It could be because the main areas are in the valleys, dips by the pond as well. That might be the concern as well. Might not be just the existing ones that are there.
Either way, though, I think if we're planning to use the same pedestals, we still need to get power to them. Councillor Howell?
At the end of the day, this is a grant. This is not money coming from us. The original money didn't come from the DTR, it came from the community forest. So to me, we're gonna debate this all night. I think they're the wrong lights altogether. I think we should do a totally different thing down there, but what are we gonna do? The money's gonna be given to try these lights. Try it differently. I'd move them totally out of there and go with a whole new system, but is that a debate for tonight? I don't know.
Well, and that's my question really is do we spend the 80, or do we use this money to try to retrofit what we have or try to find something that will sufficiently work? Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I just want to note that the money that we have currently is rural dividend funding, and that's separate from the amount that had been gained from the community forest. So this is rural dividend fund.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
Thank you, Richard. So the BC Rural Dividend Grant, was it applied for this project? Or was it applied for something else?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank
It
you.
says it can be used here.
Ms.
Thank
Thompson?
you. It was for this project. That funding is we've been holding that funding for years. So we have, when we had looked at last year for removing the blowdown, we were going to use that for this. So it was originally for this project. It would be better to continue to utilize all the funds on this project, but if not, we do have options where we would be able to request rural dividend to use it on another project, but this would be best.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. I'd like to take a 5-minute bio break, please. Recess.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Be lighting along the walking paths, put them in a different area.
Down my bike, 2 times walking. They're still in there, Curtis?
No, but their stuff is still in there.
I think it'll be okay.
Washrooms in there.
Maybe.
Who was over there, Doug?
Some guy put in along the foundation.
What?
You're there.
Oh,
But
what?
I think he was a B&G contractor. I thought he was planted bomb. Well, I seen him over at the cop shop too, behind the cop shop, he went creeping around the corner.
Oh.
So, I just wanted to get a good ID on him, just in case.
So just remember that the video is still on.
Yeah, video's on.
I know where the bag is.
Why?
It's all
Wasn't too bad.
There's always entertaining things that happen.
There's nothing wrong with the lights, right?
No, just ever since they were installed, Public Works has been collecting them and taking the heads off because they weren't working because there's not enough sunlight to support it. So they put a 24-foot light into a 60-foot canopy of trees and expect the light to light it up. But there is, if you plan on doing any more with that interpretive trail, like adding on with with Curtis's bike plan thing, then you should relook at, don't fix these things. And use the funding to go a little deeper. They work fine.
I don't know, I'm so used to walking around this room.
Yeah, right? Optically.
Where'd you go in Mexico, Joanne?
Puerto Vallarta.
Okay. Nice. Which hotel did you stay at?
We were downtown at Villa del Palma.
Because I don't know if you remember.
Villa del Mar.
For the OCP readings.
That's right by Senior
Yeah,
Falls.
to have an affirmative vote on.
Si, senor.
Not.
The home of the Cinco Cerveza.
Uno, dos, tres, cerveza, maybe cuatro. Cinco, cinco, seis.
Still have those little chairs, swing chairs you sit
I was
in
gonna
there?
say, yeah.
They're dangerous.
Yeah.
Didn't, no, not this year. It was sure nice to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be going to Mexico for a few more years, I don't think.
Why?
Abigail.
Oh, Abby would love it.
Oh, she would stay here. Stay here with her grandma, or we'd all go. No, we got a lot to work on at the house first.
Where you guys bought a house? Where did you buy it again?
140 Peace River, so just down the street from Bernie, beside the Sharman's. Sharman's lived. Nice blue house there on the corner.
Okay, excellent.
Found out that it's built facing the wrong way, but it is what it is.
What,
So, because we want to build a yard, right? So before we bought it, I'm like, Lindsay's like, oh, we'll just build the fence out here. I'm like, whoa, let's just make sure, because like anything, nothing's as you think it is. We find out that the way the house is facing is actually considered the side yard because of the way the shortest line of your lot's considered your front, which is the other side. So yeah, we're gonna move our driveway over there and take over. So we're gonna be one of the few houses in town that has a fence in its front yard. Part of its house.
Side yard.
Sorry, side yard, yeah. So that's okay.
That'll look weird.
Yeah, it'll look weird. Especially when we have like, the little walkway to the front of your door is gonna come off of our side of our.
You gotta come to the side door, it'll have a front door.
Yeah, right, I didn't like it. It is what it is. I just want a
We're
yard
live
first.
still.
Sorry?
We forgot.
Hey,
That's like
learn about
single,
learn about my house, that's fine. Council privilege, I guess. Follow the bylaws, double check the bylaws, multiple emails, been a week figuring it out. Very helpful bylaw officers.
Well, yeah, before he goes.
Last time we went just outside of Playa del Carmen. All-inclusive, adults-only resort. Nice.
Sorry, I came into that conversation late.
Neither confirm nor deny.
Sorry. Okay, call back to order. Any other questions in regards to the interpretive trail visual enhancements or concerns? Okay. Before I make a motion, I'll move on to the washrooms and walking trails. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Member Return. $113,000 seems excessive per washroom. I think we need washrooms at some of these trails, I agree, but not for $450,000. We gotta come in somewhere lower, in my opinion.
Ms. Thompson, any explanation or clarification on this and possible locations?
I will have Director Simcock respond in a second, but we are looking at putting 2 on Monkman Way and 2 on Mackenzie Way. Kind of both at either end of those trails, or yeah, those walking trails. But I will have Director Simcock respond to the design that has been proposed.
Thank you.
The design are the same concrete structure, long life cycle buildings that you see on the BC Ministry highways. They're a self-contained holding tank. The options with that is that you can have solar power lighting on the inside, which was menial dollars, a couple $100, and you had a pull switch with the accumulator solar panel on the top. In that 113 was the buildup in stone and gravel for building the walking path into it, so that you're not having a step up, you walk flush into it. And there's the ongoing maintenance. That's not calculated in 113 for pumping out the residual tank at the end of every year and maintaining it with paper and cleaning it. When this was brought to my attention, they were looking at a structure that was maintenance friendly, arson friendly. The spray paint you're never going to be able to, but with it being concrete, the paint that they put on it actually is anti-gravity. That actually washes off. So longevity, you're going to have them. Location was picked out by the CAO on my topo map in the office. But 113 was taxes and everything included. And they were made down in Kelowna. And the concrete company that makes precast systems down there is a European company that makes the system and puts the roof and stuff on when we get the hold of it. So as it comes delivered on a flatbed, and then it gets sunk in our hole, and then we backfill around it, and then build the walkway to it.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up, Councillor? Councillor Howe?
Yeah, I think 100, we asked for prices on this. We asked for this, right? We know what they are. That's what the price is. It's too high in my mind for something that's not a flush toilet. This is a glorified outhouse, right? And I know I don't want it down behind my place. You know, talk about having problems with bears in the community and whatnot. Not having flush toilets. You know, perhaps we need to take another look at this. Maybe maybe we need to put toilets down by the water treatment plant. You know, maybe that's somewhere easy to tie in flush toilets that's close to the pump track and whatnot. I don't know, but for this price for an outhouse, not interested.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lehman and Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor. The Geo-Interpretive Center is going to have accessible washrooms, as far as I'm aware, so that's takes a little bit of the strain off to downtown core, but $113,000 for, like Councillor House said, a glorified outhouse. I just can't see spending that kind of money on a walking trail. Yeah, you know, go knock on somebody's door if you're really in desperate need, but not for 113.
Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think this topic came up through COVID when our facilities were closed and people were out walking, and it was just something that, you know, came to our attention. You know, we look at it, and honestly, I think just for our residents, if you're going out for a walk, you're planning your walk accordingly to where you're going. And there's still an outhouse at the Ball Diamonds right now, And then we have our locations in the town center core, and I won't be voting in favor of this tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so I'll make a motion to remove the interpretive trail visual enhancements item. I'm not convinced that those solar panel pedestal lights are the appropriate lights to be on that trail. I think possibly we could use them somewhere else and look at another option for that interpretive trail. Seconder, Councillor Howe, discussion. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Can we get some staff for this? Like, it seemed like they said the lights were sufficient to light the trail. Did you guys hear that?
Possibly. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Director Simcock respond. Director Simcock?
The lights work sufficiently. They gave the light, adequate light where the lights are, when it was receiving light to charge them. You're right about the stairs. I've been to the trail multiple times now. And there probably would have to be a luminaire light study done or record what kind of gaps you'd have in between the lights to light the whole trail for security and safety reasons. But I think it doesn't look like they were laid out adequately spread out amongst the whole trail to have adequate protection and lighting to walk the whole trail. All I was asked to do was look at the problems that were down there with the lighting. There's an aquatic, there's a 60-foot tree elevation there, canopy that sheds more than 3/4 of the day a shadow through there. So whatever light system you do decide, you're gonna have to have that, if it's solar power, you have to have the solar accumulator outside the tree canopy. I wasn't asked to do a light study, it's very easily done, you can do that internally, on what type of luminaire spread we get, with what type of lights you want to spend, and then how much money it would cost. We could do that and bring that back to council. But right now, the way the lights are right now, you're right, you don't have adequate spacing of the lights in the locations where they're at.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. To add on, like, so this potential solar power bank we're gonna get, will we be able to add in more lighting posts to that energy source, or are we gonna be maxed out with what we're gonna build what we need for right now? So what I'm thinking is, if we want to have solar later, if we want to continue with the solar project, we're still gonna need this power bank there. If we can expand on it, well, at least we have it there, then we can expand, right? So that's my thoughts. Can we add more in?
Ms. Thompson.
You'll have Director Simcock respond again, please.
Yes, with all solar power systems, you need the panel, and then you need the source of storage for power. So the batteries are at the unit heads itself already. What we're trying to actually get is a storage facility that never changed, the lights stayed the same. We can move those lights wherever we want because we're only on a concrete block. But these cells that actually collected the energy to send to the batteries, we're going to be up in a different location away from the tree canopy.
So if we were to add more pedestals to the trail, then we would need to add more wires to each pedestal from that solar bank. Is that correct, Ms. Thompson?
More solar panels, they run on a 300-watt displacement system, so that sends a 300-watt storage system amperage to the batteries, and then depending on what type of cell and how large the cell is on the battery, will determine what your burn rate is, your time for lighting the light, and what type of light you can hook onto it. Right now, they're low voltage, very low voltage lights.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkowka, then Howe.
Thank you, I'll support the motion on the floor, and the reason I will is, I just cite out of mind, when we talk about a storage bank, I'd be concerned about panelism, so if we're talking about doing a nice solar panel thing, it takes nothing for rocks to go through that. I mean, it's out of sight, so that would be my concern. I think we should look at an option of a hardwiring lights for that trail path, if that's a concern.
Councillor Howe.
Yeah, the reason there's solar lights is so that we don't have hardwired lights down there, and we're gonna make them into hardwired lights. There's solar lights for a reason. Yank them all out of there, and put them somewhere else in the community. I can think of a few areas, the golf course parking lot, would be a good spot to put 2 or 3 of those things, maybe even out on the golf course. Put it on along some of the trails along Monkman Way in these areas that we're talking about lighting, to give people to say, hey, you know, we're thinking about doing lighting here. What do you think of doing something like this? This doesn't cost you anything. The DTR has moved these here. You know, if we're going to light that area down in there and it can't be done with solar, it has to be wired. What's the point in having solar lights down there, right?
Yeah.
It just seems crazy to me. Like, get rid of them, change it up. No lights for a year until we figure it out. Well, that's the way it is.
Okay. Any other comments, concerns? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I'd like to make another motion to remove the washrooms on walking trails from Schedule E. Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion. I certainly understand the desire and need for public washrooms in not only the downtown core, but also around the community. But I think this is a pretty expensive option, certainly. Any other comments, questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Fleet equipment, light vehicles. Questions, concerns? Yes, Councillor Kirkhope.
Yeah, I'd like to, well, I mean, quick as this, I'd like to bring up the Zamboni. Just get some clarity in regards to, I believe we have a second Zamboni that sits in a shed to the side of the rink there for use for when the other one we have is non-operational. I'm just curious, my understanding of keeping the second one when the discussion came up was so that we could keep the one that was purchased longer. So, you know, I mean, it's 13 years old. Are we replacing it because there's an issue with it, or are we replacing it just because?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I will have Director Simcock or direct Mr. Lowther to respond in regard to the Zamboni. So Director Simcock?
Yes, first I'd like to add a point. There was a misconception, maybe, with council regarding the age of the Zamboni and what Zamboni we were talking about. On the ledger that was presented through Lisa Taggarty, there was a dated Zamboni 2018 that is not in our possession and we did not purchase. So I'll just pass it on to Doug Loader.
Yeah, the current one that we use, Mayor and Council, is a 2009. That's the one that you see out all the time. The one that we have that Councilor Cook was talking about is a 1990. 92 or 97, I apologize, I don't have the information in front of me. And we do keep that for a spare in case something does happen. We've been experiencing a lot more breakdowns with our new, I'm calling it the new Zamboni, the newer Zamboni, the main Zamboni. And this winter, beginning of winter, when it did have its first breakdown for the year, we noticed substantial engine issues with it. To keep it is going to cost more than market value of it on a trade-in, plus there's a grant available right now to upgrade to a battery-operated Zamboni, which would allow us to not have to worry about emissions. We do get a grant kickback to do it, and everybody seems to be discussing how good their battery-operated Zambonis are. I think the Canucks just bought 2 of them. They love them, and this is the similar one, just a little bit smaller because we don't need quite that big.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we should compare NHL team. I'll just stay there. Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. What kind of a mower do we need for the golf course?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Mr. Lowther respond again. That's okay, Director?
Mower,
Yeah,
More. Yes.
there's a fringe mower that, or a T-box mower. It's an old John Deere diesel mower that we've had, I think, since, it's a 97 as well.
oh, okay.
So it was actually bought years and years ago initially as a greens mower. And then it got moved to a T-box fringe mower, and we bought a new greens mower in 2015. So I want to rotate that out because it's costing a lot of money. I can't get parts for it. Half the parts are coming from the States and they're used. You can't get new parts for a lot of it. And rotate the 2015 greens mower into that position, and then the new mower will be the new greens mower. So it's just kind of rotating to get the most life out of it.
Thank you. Can I follow up?
Okay, I wasn't aware, I just thought we had everything, that's fine.
That's the last
Thank
one.
you. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Howell?
So I've actually noticed some stuff with the Zamboni on our rink that I've noticed, we're having some issues with the ice down there. I don't know if that's a result of what's going on with the Zamboni or what. My concern is about replacing the Zamboni rather than fixing the one that we have. Are we gonna get as good a product on the ice with the new Zamboni and new electrical Zamboni or whatever it is, as what we used to get with the regular Zamboni? For instance, we replaced our sweeper in the community, our street sweeper. And the street sweeper we used to have did a better job than the one that is there now. The one that is there now leaves a pile of sand in the middle of the road. So I'm always concerned that when we go and change it thinking we're doing better, can we confirm that this Zamboni, electric Zamboni, is going to do what we need it to do, especially bringing in a junior team? You know, does it have enough capacity to run that thing basically every 45 minutes on the rink to keep that thing open if you were in a tournament situation where it has to go?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Mr. Lowther respond again. Mr. Lowther?
Councilor Howell, Mayor. Yeah, absolutely. The charge time is a 15-minute turnaround because it's got the heavy-duty battery pack. I'm told that the auger system is upgraded substantially from the 520 that we have. The watering system, it's got some cooler features. I'm saying cooler because I don't know the names of them because I don't have the material, but far better features than what this has with the technology in that year compared to what's available. And as I mentioned, it's the exact same model as what they're using in Vancouver.
Okay.
Just smaller battery pack because we don't have to do what passes.
Follow up?
They've only really ever got to do one end of the ice in Vancouver, so. But,
That was good. That was good.
just with that, I would imagine the Zambonis are going to go down the chain of command here. So we get rid of the really old one we got, and then this one becomes our backup Zamboni. Is that what you plan?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Mr. Lowther respond to that. Mr. Lowther?
That could be council's decision. The old one that we have is basically zero value. They won't give us any money for it. Where the 2009, the blue one, has some good market value of about $12,000 right now.
Okay.
So it would be your choice. If you wanted to rotate and lose that as a trade-in value, we would have to ask for more money for the purchase.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkhope?
Thank you, Richard. So I might be missing it, but to me, when we are looking at, upgrade by going to batteries, so we don't have, there's grant available, there's all this. To me, we should have a report about that, so that there isn't, I have a whole bunch of questions, most of them are just answered. But to me, when we're looking at changing that and going to zero emissions and all that, to me, we should have a report in our package, budget or not. I think that explains a lot why we're doing, obviously we're doing it because there's issues with the Zamboni that we're using at this time, but to me, when we're going a step up and going to battery to zero, we should have a report of that. I think we should have that knowledge, not only just for us, but rather that pull the agenda offline to see what we're doing too.
That's
That's
a good point, especially for fleet equipment replacement, because I don't think everybody fully understands the fleet replacement policy as well, public included. Yeah, that's a very good point. Ms. Thompson, your thoughts on that? you know, maybe just a quick summary of each unit and why, or do you think that it's, the reasons are captured in the fleet replacement policy and schedule?
Thank you, Member Trent, Council. So it is partially covered in the fleet replacement policy, and Mr. Lowther does have, you know, he has prepared, we have access to a more detailed information on the units that replace in that, and we know we would definitely be able to bring that and present that to council in an additional report for, you know, going forward for capital projects, not just fleet as well.
Yeah, I think that would save a lot of questions in the deliberation of it for sure, and just a little bit more explanation and clarity for it. Councillor Kirkcalkin.
Yeah, my big one's the Zamboni. I mean, we're going to a zero emission. Like, I think that's huge to get it out there. I mean, why staff went this way or whatever, whether that's the asset manager or whatever, the reason we looked at this is why, this is the benefits and all that. I think that's something I didn't even know we were going to electric. I just heard it tonight. That's why I was concerned in regards to the Zamboni, because my understanding, I mean, I haven't been down to the rink as much, but I mean, I know that's why we kept the alternate one, which I always argue, why do we have one? I mean, put any other municipality, most of them do not have a backup Zamboni sitting right next to them. Right, they get out there and hand scrape and hand flood. Right, I mean, so it's just good, and I'm glad to see staffs, you know, they went to look at that electric, I guess.
Thank you. I have a question, Ms. Thompson, in regards to the disbursement of the assets within the fleet replacement policy. We've never really had a report on what we're getting for auction when we take items to auction, or you know, the revenue that we are collecting as part of the fleet replacement policy. And I'm just wondering if you have that information, or if we could include that information in future meetings and reports, because I think it's pertinent information to know that, you know, if we're really not recovering much of any cost within the auction procedure, maybe we need to have another look at our fleet replacement policy in that regard. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I'll have Ms. Taggarty respond to the what we do with the sale of assets and disposal of assets. So Ms. Taggarty.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, I think that is a good point. I think no, it's probably something that's done at year end, and Council don't get told what's happened. So I will take that on board and think about that during the year. And obviously now with additional staff, I know for me working through with fleet, it was very helpful to receive the documentation. It's very detailed. It shows that we have got staff that are doing their jobs and they care about the product. So I think, yeah, I think it's important. See, I'm probably the only one that actually sees those breakdowns. So I think we will definitely make that improvement.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Howell.
I got a question about the replace the genie lift for the community center for $78,000. Just wondering if staff has looked at the possibility of utilizing like a rough terrain style genie lift, something that can be utilized in other places in the community rather than just the hockey rink. I could see a use for when we're putting up the banners around the community, the Christmas decorations, all the stuff that we do with a knuckle boom, where we've got an operator of the knuckle boom, we've got people in the basket, and then we've got people that are directing traffic. You know, it becomes very labor intensive. If we had a man lift that can be operated by the person who's in the man lift by themselves, you get rid of a person off the ground right off the get-go. And really the only use of that device that we have in the community center, the way I understand it, is for changing lights. When I worked at the community center, that's all we used it for, right? Go up and change some lights out and the odd inspection of the rafters or whatever, and it was used in the curling rink as well, but nowhere else in the DTR was it needed. So I just thought maybe if we spend a little bit more, could we get something that could be driven around the downtown core, changing street lights or downtown core lights, whatever.
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I will have Director Simcock respond.
Thank you.
Yeah, under health and safety, you need to have certain lights. You need a TCP program. It's not just going out and changing lights. Sure, we can entertain using the lift at other locations for sure. But when you're on a designated roadway, you need a TCP program. You need to be lit, you need to have a spotter, and I'd much rather be in that lift that we have attached to the truck. If someone was going to run into me, you'd be more safe in that unit than a genie lift up on a road system. So, safety-wise, no one's to work alone, especially out on the street. Running a piece of apparatus with the lifting, there's have a spotting man, or a spotting person, sorry. Traffic control, TCP program, and lit at all times. But sure, the GD lift that we can use in different areas throughout the municipality, for sure.
Follow up?
Yeah, and I'm not saying get rid of all your traffic control personnel, but what I am saying is that the person that operates the lift controls the person who's in the basket. And to me, if I'm the guy who's in the basket, I've done this for a living, like I would rather be the guy who's at the controls, right? So if I can run the lift up there, I don't need to tell him to move left or move right or whatever. I do it, I fix the light, I hang the banner, I come back down. You can still have traffic control. If you want to keep a third person there for another reason, whatever, go ahead. But to me, we could utilize something else within the community. And I think that one maybe should be taken out until we have staff have another look at that and see if there is the possibility. The only concern I would have is that, like how big of one do you need to reach the rafters in the community center, and can it get through the access door to get in? That would be my only concern about it. If you need a 65-footer, is that too wide to get through the doors? Something along those lines or whatever, right? So, but again, you do have the one that's still there and accessible if we can get in, right? So.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Mr. Lowther is prepared to answer that question. Mr. Lowther?
It's a good question, especially to be able to utilize it, because that's the key to try and utilize one piece everywhere or several places. I did check to see about licensing with the vehicle to drive it on the road, like legally, and something that would be small enough to use through the access way of the rec center was not licensable to drive around town. However, you can definitely do some more research and see if there would be something that could be utilized.
Thank you. Councilor?
And just for clarity, they've been used in the town before. That's how D&S Electric changed out the lights in the town before. They were going around with the man lift, so.
That tow behind one.
But it's still a man lift.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Councilor Kirkhalker?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So I just get some understanding from staff in regards to purchase Bobcat for community center.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Director Simcock respond.
Through you, Mayor. The request when we actually set forth was necessities, needs and necessities. Fleet and having Mr. Lowther here stand by with documentation site specifically. There was a need and an urgency to actually have a second Bobcat system for recreation, primarily recreation. For whenever we had a snow event, we were using it on a continuous basis. They were usually had their people that are be trained now, they're trained now to be able to use it and have the apparatus at their disposal. Well, it's been problematic over the years where they've been waiting to get it because the worst case scenario is to operate on first class, higher class roads first in the snow event. That speaks to the winter time, the summertime. Also, when we're using it for construction, maintenance, and cleaning, they've been waiting as well for it. So they've been, their request came through. Ken McEachran, numerous times, he had more than 20 times he was waiting for a piece of equipment. It wasn't a case of mismanagement, it wasn't a case of anything but needs and necessities and availability. So that's why that was prompted and put on the list.
Councilor?
Can you just give me the concept from Dr. Staff in regards to the needs? What's it for snow removal? And then what would it be used for in the summertime? For a Bobcat at community center. And I'm sorry, I remember when we purchased the first Bobcat, it was purchased for multi-purpose, for the landfill, and also to be used whenever we're in town as we have a trailer to haul it. That is my concern. Is it for snow removal, and then what would it be used for the summertime? And if we need to change our operation of snow removal and move up the sidewalk at the community center to a level 1, let's have that discussion.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Director Sidwalk respond again, please.
Yes, for the summer months, they were using it for a raking system, a sweeper, grounds maintenance, and also loading, unloading trucks as well, in their area. So, yeah. So, it's one of those pieces that, do they need it all the time? No. Is there a conflict with being able to have that one apparatus use it two places at the same time? Yeah. So that's why I went on the list. There was an issue. Were we trying to actually maximize the use of the equipment that we have? Yeah, we did. And was there a problem? Yes, there was. And that's why the necessity came to put it on the list for E.
Okay, thank you. Follow up?
I just have an issue. I totally have an issue with it. $72,000. I mean, I understand in regards to some of this removal on their sidewalk or something. Maybe we can talk about that. We can bring back the snow policy and move that up as we did for the schools on having it done by 8 a.m. Unloading trucks and stuff like that. I don't, again, that's not my job to worry with the unload at the community center. I mean, if it's for unloading stuff at the golf course, I don't know, but to me, I have a hard time saying that we need 2 Bobcats within the district of Tonbridge. So I can't support it, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Howe, did you have something? Counselor
Yeah,
Howe?
so is it gonna belong to the rec center at that point and be stored at the rec center? Or is it still become a utility vehicle and everybody in the DTR can use it? What's the plan there?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I will have Director Simcock respond to that again. Director Simcock?
Not hear that.
But where's the Bobcat skid steer gonna be used? Is it gonna be housed at the community center, belong to the community center, or does it become this communal vehicle that everybody in the DTR gets to have a run at?
Through you, Honorable Mayor, what we're doing right now is what we call a retrieval training session. So we have people at recreation that now are being trained on operating equipment as well. And water, wastewater with the hydrovac system. So there's not one piece that's dedicated to one location in this municipality. Okay, I want everyone to understand that right now. Everything is everybody's, and if they need something, and if they're trained, signed off on it, they can operate it. Primarily, it would be housed at the recreation facility in the maintenance shed system at the rear of the building. But if anyone else needed it throughout the municipality, we share everything now. Nothing's just dedicated for one division or one building. Everyone shares everything. So it would be used throughout the municipality for whatever it needed, and outfitted with a fork system and everything like that as well.
Okay, thank you. Follow up? No? Okay. I have a question in regards to 2008 Toyota water sewer foreman truck for $100,000. Holy moly. Inflation? Ms. Thompson?
I'll have, Mr. Lover respond. Sorry, Mr. Lover?
I have an issue with that too. It's actually 68,000,
Okay,
for the water sewer truck.
I was hoping it was a typo.
Yeah, I apologize, Mayor and Council. I thought that you guys had this report.
Oh, yeah.
So that's,
Can I interrupt? Is the 1 ton, do we have the prices mixed up on the 1 ton and the?
That's probably what it is.
I think it's the 1 ton, unit 17 and unit 25. We have the prices switched on.
oh,
68.
That makes more sense.
1 ton?
16,000, he said the water sewer truck.
Yeah, but in our,
It's 16,000.
Okay, that makes much more sense. Thank you.
in our report here that we have
Oh, I see.
switched there, so. Yes, we do apologize. It should be 100 for the 1 ton and 68,000 for the unit 25.
Thank you. Councilor Kirkowka?
Yeah, if we could just get, I just need a little bit of explanation in regards to an emergency standby generator for public works building, fuel island, and equipment shed. Or sorry, don't even remember that. Is that $846,000?
No, that's the total.
No, I think that's the total of all of them.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry, I
it's
just
the
seen it
total
across
for-
the one
yeah.
line.
Sorry, it's the total for all.
Okay, so it's the 65,000 for the
Correct.
thing. Is there a generator out there right now?
Ms. Thompson?
Sorry, I was responding when I shouldn't have, so I do apologize. I'll have Director Simcock respond to that regarding, I do know that there is no generator there, but do you want to respond to why we need it?
Yeah, we did an audit, a full actual site-specific audit 7 months ago. And in that audit, we documented and told the fire chief that we're going for a full power outage. We actually cut the power and actually found out that there's a local rental place that if we were lucky to receive the kilowatt generator that we needed to pump fuel, that Dustin Curry would not be able to get fuel at all, or anyone else, or even run our building or outpost in an emergency event. So we actually terminated the power and asked to hook up the generator that they usually came and brought and put into the yard. They couldn't make the connection, they had to cut the cabinet. There were 6 hours of nothing but just a breakfast of mayhem. And we finally got it hooked up. And then we called to ask, what does it actually energize? We powered it up. We found out that we had multiple relays and systems that we never ever really cut the power to, that we had to reinstall and reinstate to get actually programs to work at the fuel cell, to get the building to work, to get outlets, GFIs to actually be actuated. And that's only if a rental company had it for us. And we found out that the rental company rents it to other people as well. It's not dedicated to us during the event. So there was a comment by the CEO given to me saying that council thinks we have too many generators. Also, I went and talked to Dustin Curry, and it's the race to the cabinet to get whatever we want for specialized small generators, which I can speak to answer that question that's going to be tagged to this anyway. When you take all the water pumping stations, reservoir, up on the hill, and all locations that if it's in wintertime we have a power outage, they will freeze. Those generators are set to run thermal blankets and thermal lines that keep a water system from freezing up and collapsing. The generator we're talking about is a generator we rented off from a local rental company that actually fulfills all our needs and responsibilities of that public works building. It's not the little diesel generator. It was 28 kVA, I believe, or 38 kVA, and it's a direct wire. So we had to actually have our electrician slash water person actually hook the electrical up to see if everything worked. We went through the whole process. We found out a lot of things that we never had in play, and this was one of them. We identified this as a major, not a minor, on this list. So under the Director of Operations and Infrastructure, I recommend that this be a priority for essential services, not only to fund and feed the fire department, but to feed public works in an emergency event. And it's portable, so we can actually plug and play if one of the other primary generators goes down.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkowka.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, generator. Got a couple more questions. You just mentioned something that couldn't get fuel. So is that because we put the new fuel system in over there? Because we used to be able to get fuel when we had power outage. 100% used to be able to. So I'd be curious to know from staff if that's now not available. But I remember when power was out, there was fuel available.
Ms. Thompson.
Okay, I'll have Director Simcock.
Yeah, that was guided and fed through a 12-volt system and a hand pump system. But we're talking being able to keep up with his fleet and our fleet. And so that system would work if you're in a pinch.
Just to feed the council, to Director Simcock, just to feed the generator, PW7, you literally got to take a tidy tank down there about every 3 hours. Not to mention like the other vehicles in the fire trucks or anything. Like if you did need to supply a lot, we do have 12-volt pumps, redundancy that we could modify and put in there, and they are there for redundancy.
Councillor.
Yeah, okay, but I just wanted to clarify the comment that we could not get fuel because that's not a true statement. The only reason I say that's not to argue with staff is I know when we lost power and it was in the wintertime, so they had to shuttle to the other generators because BCM is needed to have fuel as well. So that tells you that if we have a full tank too, just like the fire department runs. If we ran out of fuel, that means we were busy. But I know they were shuttling. I just wanted to clarify that. I'm not sure how quick this generator comes, but we have access to fuel if we lose power. That's all I was trying to clarify.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Councillor Kirkcalka,
Yeah, I'd like to put a motion on for to remove the purchase of a Bobcat for the community center.
seconder. Councillor Howe, discussion? Councillor Kirkcalka.
The reason I put that out there is we have one that's supposed to be used everywhere. I understand that sometimes there's a delay and stuff like that, but again, more equipment, more replacement. So it'll go back on the replacement schedule and get replaced, just like the one down at the landfill. To me, I don't see the need for a second Bobcat isolated for the community center to store. And when it comes to that, we say we're gonna store it in the side building, but yet we've been told that there's no storage available at the community center multiple times. So I understand the Bobcat's not huge. That tells me there's enough room there for a Bobcat, so there must have been enough room in there for tables and chairs.
Okay. Councillor Norbert.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. You know, I trust staff in the process of this. I know that I personally have dealt with a lot of concerns about snow removal at the community center. I've gotten out with shoveling out there. You know, I have people directly talking to me about that. And if this can help our efficiency and snow removal at the community center, I trust staff to know what they're talking about, and I'm against the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkcalka.
Yeah, Councilor Murray, maybe if he knows the snow removal, he can tell me how they're gonna do the sidewalks. I believe that's the big concern at the community center. I have a hard time believing the Bobcat will fit between the edge of the curb and the front of the building. So if it's for snow removal at the community center, that's what we're saying now. Tell me how it fits between the brick wall and the sidewalk.
Yeah, I don't think it's strictly for snow removal. I don't think that's the way it was explained, but Ms. Thompson, more clarity, please.
Thank you. From my understanding, it's for everything at the back of the building, not necessarily the front, but Director Simcock has further information he can bring forward.
Yeah, there's the loading, unloading, the HVAC system, the condensate plant, emergency doors, everything at the rear, basically is a concerning volume to move, to make sure that people can access the back of the building properly. And then we're thinking forward if the daycare, can I speak to this? So if the daycare was going forward on primary or secondary, we'd increase traffic and exterior snow removal at the rear. As well. But yes, it wasn't primarily for snow removal at all. It was for the inadequacies that were mentioned with the management team throughout the year.
Thank you. Councillor Norbert.
Okay, so it's not going to improve snow removal too much. In terms of staff time, will it give staff more time? Like, will this expedite their duties? Give them more free time to? Are they spending a lot of time removing the snow around the back of the building? That this would help with the
Efficiencies. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. I'll have Director Simcock respond again. Director Simcock?
Yeah, it just wasn't getting done in a timely fashion before people were getting there to the pool, and yeah. So we have a certain time study that we've done. We're tracking accountability and costing right now for seasonal events, including snow removal, which is just about finished. And this was one of the highlights that came in, and we could be more efficient and have more capabilities of doing other things with it as well, alleviating and increasing our response time to the rec center.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkcalka.
Yeah, so again, maybe that snow policy needs to come back for it. It was just here in front of council a few weeks ago at P&P, but maybe we need to change the priority of around the community, backside of the community center, or look at some shift work during the snow months, October 15th to whatever it is. And maybe there should be more discussion on there instead of spending, to me, $72,000. I don't know what the turnaround is on the replacement in regards to the fleet schedule replacement of it. But again, it's going to be another unit that has to be replaced every years, the maintenance on it, all this. You know, that's just the purchase of the equipment, not all the oil and the fuel. Again, I think, you know, we get into this thing that we get one cost and then the actual cost is in the $100,000s with fuel and oil and stuff. Maybe we just need to move up the community center into a level 1. For sure.
Yeah. Ms. Thompson, a question I have is, I believe this piece is being proposed to not only improve efficiency, but also response time. If if per se we brought the snow policy back to prioritize the community center, do we have the sufficient equipment within Public Works and the sufficient amount of operators in order to accomplish the goal that council is describing as far as response time to snow events?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. It would depend on what you will move further down on the priority scale, right?
So it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
It's not, it wouldn't be something that we would just add and have the capacity to be able to do. It will be a trade-off, correct?
Shifting, correct.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Do we only have the one Bobcat in our fleet? I know there's one at the transfer station, and that's when you're hauling back and forth when we're or just to be clear.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have, I see nodding heads, so for everybody to respond, I'll have Mr. Lowther respond verbally with what we have for current Bobcat equipment.
Mayor, Councilor. So yes, it's just the one at recycle. And once again, I apologize, I thought you had this. The one at recycle will be replaced with the new Bobcat, and the older one will be moved up there. And it's roughly about a 15-year lifespan on the Bobcat at the recycle. So it'd be a little bit longer at the rec center if it's not used in the same amount of hours.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So I know staff says it would be a trade-off, but again, maybe we need to start looking in regards to shift work. You know, when we have it actually scheduled, winter month scheduling, maybe we need to have a discussion with staff when it comes to snow removal, having shift works. And then you wouldn't have to have a switch off or a trade-off.
Like an overnight shift as
Whatever
well?
maybe that's another discussion we need to have just for our winter months in Tumble Ridge, if that's the concern. Again, another expense. One, to me, it's $72,000 at first, not including all the I mean, this is probably the attachment they talked about, but fuel, the oil, maintenance of it, the wear and tear of it, the tire, it gets to be expensive. You know, I mean, we just keep buying more and more equipment, but don't look at the whole picture of what that cost us. I mean, approximately 15 years for the one down at the recycle today, the one at the community center gets moved up, sure, the life is gonna get stretched out now because it won't get used as much. So then why are we buying one if it's not gonna get used that much? That's my only concern, and that's why I have a problem with it. I remember having a discussion when we first bought the first Bobcat, was the idea to have that trailer there so it could be brought back and forth. It sounds like most staff is trained on most of the equipment. Are they trained on how to use the trailer to go down and pick it up?
Well,
My
I'm sure.
understanding, and this came up previously, how much it just sits down at the landfill, not being used. It's there to be, move bales around, load the trucks up when they come. The majority of the time, that my understanding with the Bobcat down there, it sits there quite often.
And snow removal, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Motion on the floor, I believe. Councillor Howell?
So when Mr. Lowther's talking about the document that he has in front of him that he thought council has, or what is that document? What are we talking about here?
Is that Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. So it is an internal document that we were using, and it's a new process that we added. And yeah, we didn't supply it to council, but it is a document that shows the mileage, the life expectancy, what we've spent in repairs, and why we have those units on here, and the rationale for replacing the units. So we took those and we put that into Questica, which is what you're seeing out of here. And as we understand our computer programs more, which at this time we have basic knowledge of it, this is our way of working through this at this time. So this was a really good addition that Mr. Lowther worked on to add in the rationale for each piece of equipment. So that's what it shows us, is the last 3 years of repairs. Because we've had those questions before, right? We brought it, so this was an internal document at this time, but you know, we can provide it to council going forward in the next years.
Councillor?
Because to me, it really comes down to usage. You know, like if the thing is getting utilized 25 to 30 hours a week, yeah, there's going to be some overlap where people can't utilize the equipment. But you know, if the hour meter says it's 500 hours or 1,000 hours, and we've had it for 3 or 4 years, how much is it actually being utilized? And that to me comes down to management. If like Councillor Kauk is saying, if we can change some schedules, maybe the folks at the community center start a little earlier, that way we utilize it. I don't know. To me, I'd need a little more information before I'm willing to spend $72,000 on it at this time. But if it is overutilized, then absolutely, they're a handy piece of equipment to have in the DTR. But let's see how much it's utilized and see if it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not a replacement, right? This is in addition to.
Addition, yep. Absolutely. Any other comments? Councillor Kirby?
Just one more. With the Bobcat transfer station, does the PRRD supply any kind of equipment down there? Because I would imagine that the Bobcat gets used quite a bit down there. There's pallets, you got all your bins, your everything else. I'm just wondering if there's anything in that in the PRRD.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'll have Director Simcock respond. Director Simcock?
Yeah, through,
It's 8 o'clock.
through PRD, it's a joint venture system that we have down there. Everything's accountable, everything's recordable, and they pay their percentile, everything that we request through our process. So it gets used a lot. The pay share system is being used for anything in their scope of work that we contract one of our employees to, and we charge it accordingly.
But as far as contribution of equipment, there is none.
We charge average.
Contract.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councillor?
Well, the only thing is if we're charging back the use of the Bobcat, then maybe that Bobcat is good just staying where it is. If that's the way it is, it's kind of getting, if we're getting money back for the use of it there, then maybe that's one reason to say that just stays there, and then there's maybe a reason to have another one that's within the community.
Okay, we're at 8 o'clock here. We do have a motion on the floor, so I will call the question. Actually, before I call the question, Ms. Thompson, can we please read that motion back, please?
Mayor and council, the motion was to remove the purchase of the Bobcat for the community center from schedule.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Thank you. Okay, motion to continue the meeting past 3 hours. I'll make that motion. Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Thank you. Thank you very much to staff for the information and appreciate all the hard work.
We need a motion to adjourn.
Yes, sorry, motion to adjourn the regular meeting of council. Councillor Kirkowka. Seconder, Councillor Kirby. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I just gotta grab the.
That's all right. You are, that's okay.